This is a true crime discussions channel. We speculate. This is all just speculation. Because it's true crime, it's for mature audiences only. There will be no children allowed, no exceptions. Everything on this channel falls under fair use. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. It's free. Good morning. Good morning, all my lovely family members. It's so good to see you here this Saturday morning. I saw Abellis and Joy and Jenny and Eek. Good morning. Good morning, my lovelies. Anybody else that's here that's watching, good morning. We are going to do interviews with murmurers this morning. Abellis, I am feeling great, actually. I was able to take a nap yesterday, and it helped out a lot. I've been up crocheting like angel Christmas ornaments and everything. Basil is good. I actually looked down in his ears because if they have ear infections, it'll be like a buildup of wax in their ears. So I checked, and there's no wax at all whatsoever. And it gets hot in here, so I think his ears get hot because he's regulating his body temperature. And I was actually able to get his nails last night because his nails were kind of long. And so I would have to like pet him for like 10 minutes, and then I could clip his nails real quick. And so I was able to get quite a few of his nails clipped. I know they were hurting him. Oh, Eek, I don't have all the energy in the world, love. doTERRA supplements help, but I'm trying to get all this stuff together because I enjoy making like lotions and salves and soaps and things. But I want to go to a craft fair. It's going to be the first time I've ever done it, so I'm trying to just make stuff I know how to make. Most of it I learned by watching YouTube videos, actually. If you want to learn how to crochet, the best person to go to is a lady that the channel is called Bag O Day Crochet. It's like bag-o-day crochet. And her name is Crystal. That's how I learned how to crochet, because like nobody could teach me for like the longest time. Nobody could teach me how to crochet, but she did. I started with like a little dress pot holder or whatever. If you start with the small things, she usually shows you. And I've put out a few crochet tutorials myself on the other channel, but I don't advertise that channel. It's just a really small channel. If somebody ever was to find it and hit me with the name of it, I would tell them that they found it. But other than that, I don't share it because it's mostly, crochet tutorials and things like that. You could match my voice, but that would be about how you would find that. So we're going to start with this Jeffrey Dahmer interview, and this is from way back probably in the 90s or late 80s, I would say. This is going to be Inside Edition, obviously, but the person that I got it from is Buzzard Beatniks. They have 2,660 subscribers. So if you wouldn't mind, give them a like and subscribe. And with that, we will get started. Today we are doing interviews with convicted murmurers after they were sentenced to prison. We're going to talk about what they said and their thought processes, and why they said they did the things they did. Oh, Eek.
The world watched in horror as the savagery of serial murderer Jeffrey Dahmer unfolded.
It was almost addictive. It was almost a surge of energy.
The nation was stunned by the magnitude of the crime.
No one had a clue as to what was happening for over a decade.
How could this shy child grow into a modern-day monster?
I started having these obsessive thoughts when I was about 15 and 16, and they got worse and worse.
Today, another Inside Edition World exclusive. Nancy Glass talks to serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer.
If you were out on the street now, would you still be committing the crimes?
Did they say Nancy Glass? Like, that's too close to Nancy Grace for me. I was like, dang, did Nancy Grace do this back in her prime?
Probably. If this hadn't happened, there's no doubt I probably would be.
2, 1.
Okay, we all know that that he would still be doing it if he hadn't have been found out. I think that Jeffrey Dahmer, I actually have sympathy for him because I really think there was just something in him and he really couldn't help it. And I think the issue was he loved body, like he loved the body, like not necessarily the person. He didn't care about the person or what they said or their thoughts or feelings. He just was in love with the body. You know what I mean?
Hello, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching this very special Inside Edition. How could a normal-looking man with normal parents and a normal job commit some of the most brutal crimes the world has ever seen? Jeffrey Dahmer has never talked publicly about killing 17 people until now. Nancy Glass is here with a very chilling interview. And Nancy, first set the scene for us. What impression does Dahmer give when you first meet him?
Well, Bill, surprisingly, he is very articulate, and when he is talking, you can see how he was able to manipulate his victims and how he was able to get away with it for so long. He also talks about his horrendous crimes in great detail, but in a very clinical manner, and you realize that none of it has touched him.
Good morning, Queen Olive Ruth Ann. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Is Bill O'Reilly. Like, look how young he was. Joy, I will work on pulling up his brain scan while we're watching, because I know that's out there.
Old matter of fact.
Yeah.
And Nancy will be back in just a few moments with the first part of her interview.
It was almost addictive, a surge of energy. I wouldn't have to worry about any of their needs or anything. I just had complete control of the situation.
He is 32 years old, and he is pure evil, but you'd never know it by looking at him. But when you hear him, that's another story. His killing field was Milwaukee, and he got away with murder for more than a decade. But how could any of this happen? For the first time ever, Nancy Glass is here inside the world of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Bill, when I sat down opposite Jeffrey Dahmer for this interview, I wondered what he would tell me, how hard it would be to get him to discuss his horrific crimes. What I found was that he was very forthcoming. He volunteered details that may be difficult to hear. I began by asking what he wanted from the men he picked up.
I had these obsessive desires and thoughts wanting to control them, to, I don't know how to put it, possess them permanently.
And that's why you killed them.
Right, right. Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me. And as my obsession grew, I was saving body parts such as skulls and skeletons.
Jeffrey Dahmer is recalling his monstrous past. Almost 2 years ago in this little apartment in Milwaukee, police discovered the grisly remnants of one of the most horrible crime sprees in American history. Jeffrey Dahmer, an unassuming chocolate factory worker, would eventually confess that he had seduced, murdered, and dismembered 17 young men. He even ate some of his victims' body parts.
I was muted. Right, Eek. I was thinking the same things, especially the way he was like, I didn't really care. It wasn't about the person. I didn't care about their wants or needs. It was about being there with them and having complete control over the situation. I do think that that is a form of OCD. I was able to pull up the brain scans, by the way, and I've got an article on it and it shows the pictures. So we'll go over that after we get done watching this interview and before we jump into the next one.
He instantly became the center.
It's important to remember the victims in all of this, and please, if you pray or whatever you do, just, remember them and say a prayer for their family.
Of worldwide media attention, a serial killer unmasked. There were protests and press conferences in Milwaukee as people tried to understand how this could have happened in their midst. How did Jeffrey Dahmer get away with murder after murder for 13 years? How did a boy born into a hardworking middle-class family turn into the worst kind of monster imaginable? In this exclusive interview, we put those questions to Jeffrey Dahmer himself. We met with him at the maximum security prison where he is serving his sentence of 999 years. For the first time, he talks about his crimes and gives us a chilling look inside the mind of a serial killer.
His dad said, I don't know if you've seen any of the new movies about him, but his dad said that his mom was on some like heavy psychotropic drugs when she was pregnant with him. And if you think about nowadays, when you're pregnant, like the doctor doesn't want you to be on anything at all whatsoever, especially psychotropic medication. And if you think back to like when he was born, I'm not exactly sure when he was born, I would say the 50s or 60s, what they knew about medications and what they put people on, they had no idea the effect it had on babies and things like that to the extent of what we know now. And I wonder if some of that psychotropic medication that she was on did something, because his dad really thinks that that's where it stemmed from, because he started showing signs so early. Now, could it be something else? Of course, but I question the correlation to the prescription medication she was taking while she was pregnant and what he did.
It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. When you depersonalize another person and view them as just an object for pleasure instead of a living, breathing human being,
Jeffrey is deceased. He was murmured by another inmate. The inmate found basically a news article or something got into the prison where they were at, and he was a trustee because he did so well in prison. Um, and the man that murmured him had a lot of psychological issues, and basically was handed a printout from a newspaper showing what he did, what Jeffrey did. And the man basically snapped and said that it was his duty to take him out. And he did take him out. And from what I understand, Jeffrey kind of just let it happen because felt he needed to pay for his crimes, and he was like, yep, this is the end, this is going to be it, I'm done, I'm just going to let it happen.
seems to make it easier to
Thank you.
do things you shouldn't do.
The reason why Jeffrey Dahmer was able to get away with his crimes was because of just what you are seeing here. Jeffrey Dahmer is intelligent and articulate. That is what makes him so frightening. But if you listen carefully to his words throughout this interview, you realize it is a thin disguise.
You do sound, though, like the kind of person who could have said to himself, "This is wrong. I must stop."
I always knew that it was wrong, but after the first killing was not planned. I was coming back from the shopping mall back in '78. I had
Good morning,
fantasies about picking up a hitchhiker and taking him back to the house and having complete control and dominance over him.
The hitchhiker's name was Stephen Hicks. He was just 18. Jeffrey Dahmer took him to his parents' house. There, he strangled him with a barbell. He dismembered the body and hid it in a drain pipe. It was Jeffrey Dahmer who gave those details to the police in his confession.
No one had a clue as to what was happening for over a decade.
During that time, Jeffrey Dahmer joined the Army and was sent to Germany. He was eventually discharged for a drinking problem and returned to Ohio. 9 years after Stephen Hicks' murder, the killing began again.
What happened to you in the 9 years in between that you were able to stop, that you were able to control yourself?
It just wasn't an opportunity to fully express what I wanted to do. There was just not the physical opportunity to do it then. And I started, when I moved to Milwaukee in '81, I started reading pornography, going to the bookstores. Eventually that led to frequenting the gay bars.
Good morning, Zan. Good to see you. You can go eat, love. We'll be here. We're going to watch this interview and then get into some less known murmurers. They wanted to start with Jeffrey, so we did. Going back to what Abella said, he was born, I think it was May 1960. So you got to think about 1959. The psychotropic medications they would have given his mother while she was pregnant with him, and she was on like heavy psychotropic medication. And again, like I said before, I questioned the correlation to her prescription medications because in 1959, they didn't know that, like, they would have effects on an unborn child like they do now. Like now, like I said, the doctor don't want you taking any kind of, not even antidepressants while you're pregnant. And she was like way past antidepressants from what I understand.
And then one time I brought this young man back to the hotel room, the Ambassador Hotel. Was just planning on drugging him and spending the night with him. I had no intention of hurting him. When I woke up in the morning, he had a broken rib here. I was heavily bruised. Apparently I had beaten him to death with my fists.
And you have no memory?
I have no memory of it. But that's what started the whole spree all over again.
Dahmer says he snuck the corpse of his victim, Stephen Toomey, out of his hotel room in a suitcase. Then he took it to his grandmother's house, where he cut up the body and put it in plastic garbage bags.
When you killed these men, afterwards, were you repulsed? Were you upset?
No, at the time, it was almost addictive. It was almost a surge of energy. I wouldn't have to worry about any of their needs or anything. I just had complete control of the situation.
But Jeffrey Dahmer was out of control. The urge to kill had overpowered him. As police later learned, he wasn't satisfied with his victim's death. He wanted more.
Why did you photograph them?
It was my way of remembering their appearance, their physical beauty. I also wanted to keep something, if I couldn't keep them there with me whole.
Good Lord, Anders, that sounds horrible. But, I mean, you can see Anders says in Sweden in 1961, they gave pregnant women anti-axolotl med called Neurocity. And the kids were born with no arms. The hands were attached to their shoulders. That is horrific. But it just goes back. I mean, that was 1961, and he was born in 1960. So that's just kind of proving the point that I was talking about. They were still learning about the effects of medication on pregnant women and their unborn child. Anti-anxiety, eek, help me. Anti-anxiety. So again, that's going to be a psychotropic medication. So yeah, that just goes back to prove my point, what I was talking about. Abellis, I'm glad that your mom refused that medication. Zan, you're good.
At least I felt that I could keep their skeletons. And I even went so far as planning on setting up an altar with the 10 different skulls and skeletons.
And what was the purpose of the altar going to be?
As a sort of memorial. A point where I could, I don't know. It's so bizarre and strange, it's hard to describe. A place where I could collect my thoughts and my obsession.
When the bodies were still in your apartment, there was no time when you would see them and say, this is grotesque. What have I done?
There were times, but the compulsive obsession with doing what I was doing overpowered any feelings of revulsion.
This man with a quiet, almost shy demeanor became a master manipulator who was able to lure strangers he met at gay bars to his apartment. He was even able to con the police into returning a 14-year-old boy to him after neighbors called 911 upset that the child was in the street naked and bleeding. Dahmer convinced the police that he and the boy were simply having a lover's quarrel.
The intoxicated boyfriend of another boyfriend.
How old was the child?
It wasn't a child, it was an adult.
After the police left, Jeffrey Dahmer murdered that boy. Conorak synthism phone.
Now, about him, and I'm going to give a heavy trigger warning. What Jeffrey would do was get them to drink with him, and he would put like very heavy psychotropic medication in their drinks. Most of the time, it would put them to sleep. This boy, he had met in front of the ABC store and offered to buy him and his friends some alcohol, but he said, in return, you got to come back to my house and let me take some pictures of you. And so the boy did. And he had actually, now again, heavy trigger warning. This is about to get graphic, but he had taken a hand drill, like an electric drill, and he had drilled inside of his skull into his brain. And the boy was able to still get up and try to leave, and was stumbling down the steps and outside of the apartment complex, but couldn't figure out where he was going and what was going on, because, he had just had his brain screwed or whatever. And the police came and gave him right back. And people say it's because, you got to think this was the 80s or, the 80s. And because Jeffrey was like, this is my boyfriend, the police were kind of like, you got to think AIDS was going on and the big epidemic. The police were like not wanting anything to do with it, really. So they just gave the boy back to him. It was horrible.
This man says he had a near-fatal encounter with Jeffrey Dahmer.
He wanted to take some picture of my back. He hit me with a rubber hammer on my neck.
He was lucky to escape because by then the killing had become almost routine.
Before you went out to pick up the man, was there any kind of ritual you went through?
I'd go to the nightclubs, drink, watch the striptease shows, and if I didn't meet anyone at the bars, I'd go to the bath clubs and meet someone there, offer them money, and we'd go back to the apartment, have a few drinks. I'd have the sleeping pill mixture already prepared. Person would drink it, fall asleep, and that's when they would be strangled.
Watching the movie Exorcist 3 was also part of his ritual. It put him in the mood for murder.
I felt so hopelessly evil and perverted that I actually derived a sort of pleasure from watching that tape.
Did you like feeling evil?
No, I didn't. But I had tried to overcome the thoughts, and it worked for a while, but eventually I gave in.
While Jeffrey Dahmer may
Anders,
say
I didn't know
things
that.
today that make it seem like he understands what went on in his mind, he does not. All he can do is tell you what happened, but he cannot stop whatever it is that drove him to kill in the first place.
Do you still feel those same urges? Do you still feel that compulsion, that obsession?
I wish I could say that it just left completely, but no, there are times when I still do have the old compulsions.
And coming next, as we continue, Dahmer talks about how his obsessions became more and more out of control.
I was dead set on going with this compulsion. It was the only thing that gave me any any satisfaction.
Your interview.
So Jeffrey Dahmer.
Anders says he told jokes to fellow inmates in the prison, and the jokes were talking about eating human organs, and they didn't think it was particularly funny. Yeah, I could definitely get that. He is super intelligent though, and very well spoken. Which they talk about him and Ted Bundy being like that. I didn't even think about Ted Bundy. We should go over some of his interviews as well. But yeah, it's surprising to see how intelligent and well spoken he is, considering what he did.
Says as time went on, his mind became more and more warped, and yet he was clever enough to continue to elude police and lure young men to his apartment. We should warn you, the details are very graphic.
I started having these obsessive thoughts when I was about 15 and 16, and they got worse and worse.
What were your fantasies about?
They were sexual fantasies of control, power, complete dominance. They became reality.
Was there pleasure in that fantasy?
There was excitement, fear, pleasure, all mixed together.
Jeffrey Dahmer fulfilled his fantasies by murdering and dismembering 17 young men. In time, his desires became more extreme, his deeds more grotesque. Listen to him talk about the most unnatural things in the most matter-of-fact.
We're going to read the name.
Pleasure, all mixed together.
Jeffrey Dahmer fulfilled his fantasies by murdering and dismembering 17 young men.
Okay, I'm going to read their names, and we're going to take just a second to remember the victims here. It was Hicks, Sears, Beeks or Becks, Smith, Miller, Straughter, Lindsay, Hugos, Sapanopoulos, Turner, Weinerberger. It's hard to see the ones at the bottom. Lacey, Benderhoff, Thomas, and Guerrera. So please take a second and remember the victims and their families. Okay.
In time, his desires became more extreme, his deeds more grotesque. Listen to him talk about the most unnatural things in the most matter-of-fact of ways. That's when you realize that none of it has touched him.
I was branching out. That's when the cannibalism started, eating of the heart and the arm muscle. It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me. At first, it was just curiosity, and then it became compulsive. Then I tried to keep the person alive by inducing a zombie-like state, by injecting first dilute acid solution into their brain or hot water, and it never did completely work.
Could someone like you be stopped? Could you be helped?
No, I was dead set on going with this compulsion. It was the only thing that gave me any satisfaction.
He became so warped by his evil impulses that he even took a victim's head with him to work at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory.
I kept the mummified head and skull of one of the victims in a carrying case in my locker at work.
Were you almost flaunting it?
Yes, but that's how strong the compulsion was. That's how bizarre the desire was. I wanted to keep something of the person with me.
Jeffrey Dahmer exhibited some disturbing behavior early on. He began drinking heavily as a teenager, dropped out of college, was arrested for indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, and fondling a 13-year-old boy. Tragically, one of his murder victims would be that boy's brother.
Do you know what started it? Was there any kind of incident that you can remember?
To this day, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that boy's brother. Evidently, yeah, I remember. So the story that I remember hearing was that family was a family of immigrants, and he did get caught messing with that little boy. That boy's older brother at a park or something, and then some years later he met his younger brother outside of the liquor store, and the younger brother was like, I remember you doing something to my brother, and I don't really want to go, but he was able to talk him into going and saying, I'm just going to take some pictures. And he did what he did. And then, the dad's finding out that not only has this monster done something to one of his boys, but he's murmured his other boy. And not only that, that the police took the boy back to him. That dad, I mean, my God, that poor family. Good morning, Trixie. Good morning, Paranormal. We were worried about you yesterday, Paranormal. We were saying prayers and making sure you're okay. I know I messaged you and you were, or I saw your post on Facebook. You were watching a movie. But glad to see you here. And good morning, Trixie.
I don't know what started it. And the person to blame is sitting right across from you.
Oh,
That's the only
Paranormal,
person.
you're funny.
Not parents, not society, not pornography. I mean, those are just excuses.
His macabre 13-year crime spree finally ended when this man, Tracy Edwards, brought the police to the infamous apartment. Like the others, he had gone there with the promise of money.
He was listening to my heart because at a point he told me he was going to eat my heart at that point. I hit him and I ran.
What was the turning point for you that made you suddenly realize that you had done something terribly wrong, something you should be sorry for?
It was.
I just dropped the link if anybody wants to join me on panel as we go over this. Just, the offer's there in case anybody wants to jump up here. Thank you, Paranormal. I was trying to find it, but I couldn't. But I might not be signed in on Messenger under this name, so I'll look for it. Thank you.
Was the night of the arrest. I have no memory of what happened during the 6 hours before the last victim ran out of the apartment. I heard a knock on the door, and the police were there with the last victim. They asked me where the key was to the handcuffs. My mind was in a haze. I sort of pointed to the bedroom, and that's where they found the pictures. And they yelled, "Cuff him." I was handcuffed, and it was just the realization that there was no point in trying to hide my actions anymore. The best route was to help the police identify all the victims and just make a complete confession.
When it was revealed that most of the victims were black or homosexual, people in Milwaukee were incensed. Many felt that was why he went after them and why the police didn't seem to care when their families reported them missing.
10 of your 17 victims were black.
Good morning,
Were they
lovely
racially motivated?
It was not racially motivated. It was not
Joy, I hope you're
sexual
okay.
preference. It was just to find an obsession with the best-looking young man I could find.
While you just heard him say that his sexual preference had nothing to do with the killings,
No.
he has not come to terms with his homosexuality.
Never understood it. There was no use trying to fight it because I couldn't rid myself of it. It was too powerful and persistent.
Do you dislike it?
Yes, it's caused a lot of problems for me. A lot of conflicts and
Oh, wow,
unanswered
Abellis.
questions.
The conflicts remain with him, and so do his compulsions. But in prison, he finally cannot act on his savage desires.
If you were out on the street now, would you still be committing the crimes?
Probably. If this hadn't happened, there's no doubt I probably would be. I can't.
Good morning, Mary Paranormal. I'm glad that everything went good yesterday with cutting down the trees. Good morning, Mary. Mary says, I'm not surprised this man didn't make it long in jail. I feel really bad for his dad. Yeah, Mary, we were just talking about how we feel like he wanted to end it. And it did seem that way. I think he did stuff to get people to end it for him. We were just talking about that. But good morning. Nice to see you.
Can't think of anything that would have stopped me.
Boy, does he come across as cold-blooded. Did you see any remorse?
Well, he says he's sorry, Bill, but I'm not sure he knows what that means. Tomorrow he talks about how he disassociated himself from his crimes and what lengths he went to hide them.
We will see you tomorrow, Nancy. Thanks for that report. And Inside Edition, we'll be right back. Tomorrow, more of Nancy Glass's interview with Jeffrey Dahmer.
What do you want to say to the families of the victims?
I had no intention of hurting them. I was extremely selfish. I was only thinking of myself.
It's the interview the nation is
I was gonna say I don't know why it's doing that intro again, but it just did. Maybe this was a second part or something.
talking about. Serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer speaking for the first time.
Why was it so easy, though, for you to hide it all?
I bought security systems, installed them myself in the apartment. I had a video camera in the corner of the room.
Today, Nancy Glass continues her remarkable interview with serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer.
Just one question. You gotta go live. She was home alone when an intruder turned her evening into a night of terror. She reached for the phone in a desperate call for help.
Okay, Joy.
But it was too late. Or was it?
The phone was off the
Okay, Joy, I hope that it gets better.
hook. We were able to record almost the entire conversation.
Let's go.
Did y'all see that videotape they slid across the counter there or the table? I remember videotapes like that when I was little.
Oh, baby, it's cold. Inside Edition today. What would you do if a thug broke into your house? Could you go wide? It is one thing to read about his crimes, quite another to hear how dispassionately this killer talks about his grisly deeds. Nancy Glass joins us now to continue her exclusive interview with Dahmer. Nancy.
So Jeffrey Dahmer is now in jail serving 15 consecutive life terms for his terrible crimes. Wisconsin does not have the death penalty. In prison, he is getting therapy, but he says it hasn't helped him. He spends his time reading the Bible and volumes of mail. I asked him if he was afraid of what might happen in prison, and he said, no. What difference does it make if someone comes after him because he...
I was muted. Thank you, Content Angel, for being here. I really appreciate it. You didn't have to get up early to be here, but thank you. Glad to see you.
doesn't care if he lives or dies. He prowled gay bars, picking up men to seduce and murder. Jeffrey Dahmer says his desire to control and possess his victims drove him to inhuman acts on the living and the dead. He was a killing machine out of control. How should you be punished?
Well, there's no question that I deserve the death penalty. I've wondered myself why I don't have the death penalty. That's what I deserve. I deserve death.
What do you think happens after you die?
Right. That's the big unknown. I've had thoughts of suicide, but I just haven't been able to carry them through. So I don't know what the future will hold.
In the past, Jeffrey Dahmer was very sure of what he wanted and how to get it. 17 young men would die at his hands. Later, when he made this confession to the police, he included crimes too grotesque to repeat on television, too gruesome to be believed. Dismemberment, cannibalism, and worse. And he was cunning enough to get away with it for 13 years.
Why was it so easy, though, for you to hide it all?
I desensitized myself to it. I don't know. I went to great lengths. I bought security systems, installed them myself in the apartment. I had a video camera in the corner of the room, installed locks on the doors, sirens and stuff in case anyone broke into the apartment.
And although his victims' body parts were in the apartment, when his father and stepmother came to visit, they detected nothing.
They said it was absolutely clean, perfect.
Right.
How'd you hide from them?
Everything was locked up, either in the freezer or in the file chest. And so there was no evidence laying in the open.
Yeah, he had a deep freezer that had locks on it, and when his parents would come and see him, he would get the room, clean everything up real good so they couldn't see anything because, obviously he didn't want anybody to know. Um, and evidently he kept a really clean house.
There was nothing abnormal about the look of the apartment.
And he almost got caught after a 14-year-old victim escaped into the street naked and bleeding.
Mary says, what about the smell? I was wondering that when it came to the filing cabinet, but if you think about, how we freeze meat, it doesn't smell. Even if it's like been frozen for a year, it's still not going to smell. Now, if we were to leave it in a filing cabinet for an extended period of time, yeah, it would smell. But I'm assuming, I mean, I would assume that maybe it was cold or frozen in the filing cabinet, or you got to think about filing cabinets made back then. Would it hide the smell? And how long would it take for a body to start smelling? Like if he had just done it right before they came over, maybe the night before, maybe it wouldn't have been smelling yet. And I'm sure that he pretty much got everything, as gross as it sounds, into the freezer not long after, after he did his thing, and then he would put it up until later. Yeah, he had barrels too. Thank you, Abellis. He did have barrels, and they had acid in them, and they would break down the body.
When neighbors called 911, Dahmer managed to talk his way out of trouble.
During the incident where the police were called,
Mm-hmm.
and the young boy was returned to you, that didn't wake you up at all? The police on your doorstep?
They were in the apartment. They were actually in the apartment, and there was a dead young man in the bedroom on the floor. I couldn't believe it when it turned out that they didn't see anything. I couldn't believe it. And yes, it did shock me, but not enough to quit. That's how strong the compulsion was.
Jeffrey Dahmer describes the unspeakable with no emotion. It is as if he sees his victims as objects, not people. In fact, when he confessed, he remembered every horrific detail of what he did to them, but he couldn't remember their names.
Do you ever think about your victims?
I've often wondered why I haven't had more dreams or nightmares about what I've done. For some reason, it's like it's blocked off from part of my mind. If I dwelled on the subject all the time, I wouldn't be able to function.
Jeffrey Dahmer prefers to hide from the difficult truth about himself. That has always been his pattern. Even during his trial, he
Right, content?
found a way to tune out.
You're wearing glasses now.
Right.
You didn't during the trial. Why not?
I didn't want to. I felt uncomfortable looking anyone in the face. I didn't want to see anyone's face clearly. It helped me disassociate myself from what was happening.
One woman in particular really got angry. What did you think when she was doing that?
I couldn't blame her a bit. I'm surprised there wasn't more of that.
What do you want to say to the families of the victims?
I had no intention of hurting them. I was extremely selfish. I was only thinking of myself, my own pleasure, my own...
Yes, Anders, they were fired, but they did end up getting their job back, or they got fired with pension or something to that effect. Yeah, it was crazy because the whole community went they were livid because it was all people of a different race that he murdered. So they were saying it was a hate crime, but personally, I don't think that's what it was. I think he was just in love with them, but admired them, and that was what he wanted. So I think it was quite the opposite, that he desired them, that it wasn't a hate crime. It was more of he loved people of the same sex but different races. But yeah, they did get fired, and they did end up getting their jobs back, or got fired and still got paid, or something to that effect.
Perverted desires.
You know, the families of the victims don't believe in your conversion or your sorrow.
Oh, right. And if I was on their end of the table, I wouldn't either. Ultimately, I am accountable to the Lord Jesus Christ. He'll be my final judge.
Can your sins be forgiven?
The Lord Jesus Christ's shed blood is powerful enough to wipe out even my sins.
When he had to deal with some of the terrible realities of his life, Jeffrey Dahmer's conversation would veer off into scripture. Like many other criminals, he claims he has found God in prison, and his daily routine reflects his need to shut out the world.
I usually wake up at 6:30 in the morning, go eat breakfast, and then sleep until noon, wake up for lunch, and sleep until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, eat dinner, and then spend the greater portion of the night watching TV.
He is up all night because he cannot face the daylight and the monstrous crimes that put him behind bars.
I try not.
Content Angel says, I was in college when this happened, majoring in criminal justice. This case was one of the first major cases after the Victims' Rights Act, so victims could make statements at sentencing like that woman that was yelling at him. She says, the woman that was like that woman you just saw, we didn't do that prior to 1990, so it was shocking to see people screaming in court like that lady. Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Thank you for that. Abellis isn't sure that Jeffrey can be forgiven for his crimes. Yeah, I don't know. The Lord forgives us for all our sins, so I'm glad he found God.
Not to think too deeply about anything.
They do.
Because then I get depressed. I try to figure out why this happened, what started these thoughts in my head at such a young age, whether this has any meaning to it, or whether this is all just a horrible coincidence, all the events in my life. I feel that I'm better off here than I was on the outside doing what I was doing.
You're glad you're in prison.
I think it's best for everyone, right?
And you heard Jeffrey Dahmer say he wants to be punished. The victims' families agree. They voice their opinions tomorrow. And Jeffrey Dahmer talks about his early years and his family life. And finally, an expert on serial killers will tell us how this could have happened. Bill?
Good report, Nancy. Thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow. Their reaction on Inside Edition.
Unique insight into the mind of a monster.
I'm against capital punishment, but I still think that he's not suffering enough.
Today, the victim's relatives speak out.
I would like to ask him why. He's on a suicide watch, and from day one, he's never tried to commit suicide. So, I mean, get a clue. He likes living, just like my brother did like my sister.
For the past 2 nights, we have heard serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer explain why he did what he did. Dahmer makes no excuses. He feels he should be executed. But what about the families of his victims? What are they going through, and what is their reaction to the words of Dahmer? Nancy Glass continues her exclusive interview. Nancy.
Bill, the building where Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes were discovered has been torn down. The grisly details of his killing spree have been revealed. He will be in prison for the rest of his life. All that remains is the question, why did this happen?
I had normal friendships in high school, but after that, I started in with the alcohol, drinking, a lot of solitary drinking, and really never had any close friendships after that, after high school. Just sort of lived in my own thought life, fantasy world.
I'm sorry, I was getting my day clothes on. They tore down the building where it happened because people were coming and taking pictures in front of the building and kind of memorializing where all of this horrendous acts happened. So they did end up tearing that building down not long after, and it was on the news, and people were standing out there. They came just to watch and things like that. And again, I know I paused earlier. I'll probably do it again just to have a moment of silence for the victims and their families.
Created those twisted fantasies is a question many are asking. According to some experts, Jeffrey Dahmer does not fit the profile of a ritual murderer.
The typical serial killer kills for the thrill, for the excitement. He wants to hear the victim scream and shout and try to get away.
Northeastern University professor Jack Levin is a sociologist and criminologist who has studied hundreds of serial killers. He says what he saw in our interview surprised him.
I think the very fact that he sedated his victims before he strangled them, which is the last thing that most serial killers would do, gives us an indication that he may actually have felt guilty and that he did care, at least to some extent, about his victims. He's a little bit different in a number of ways. And the very fact that he necrophiled his victims is a clue that he felt extremely rejected, abandoned, and he couldn't even have sex with his victims while they were alive. In most cases, he had to kill them first.
Were you molested?
Never.
In your childhood, you have any memories of anything that you would associate with what you became?
No, that's a strange thing. I can't pinpoint anything.
So there was nothing in your childhood?
No abuse, no physical abuse, no verbal abuse. It was a normal childhood in a good home. Something went awry in my thought life. I don't know why.
He grew up on this quiet, tree-lined street in Bath, Ohio. Friends say the young Jeffrey Dahmer exhibited some unusual interests.
Were you obsessed with dead animals? Is that true?
I was interested in taxidermy in high school and experimented with preserving the bones of dogs and things like that. And whether that had anything to do with the escalation of the crimes, I don't know.
But by all accounts...
So from what I understand about that is that it was roadkill, and it was like one of the only things that he showed interest in, and his dad tried to help him with that and like get him to pursue that. And then later in life, his dad felt horrible for trying to get him to pursue that because he saw the correlation. But he thought it would be a good thing for his son. You know, he showed interest in something finally. And, you know, so he was trying to get him to do it to, like, you know, try to help him be a better person. And it ended up making him a worse person. And his dad felt guilty for that for the rest of his life, from what I understand.
His terrible crimes are far removed from his ordinary beginnings. His father, Lionel, is a chemist who taught his son how to play tennis. His mother, Joyce, was a housewife. The family split apart when Jeffrey Dahmer turned 18. A court order kept his father away from the house. His mother, who had been hospitalized for mental problems, left too. It was when he was alone in the house that Jeffrey Dahmer committed his first murder.
Let me put this in perspective. There are millions of people who get divorced. There are millions of people who have step-parents. And what does it do to them? Well, it doesn't make them kill. It doesn't make them cannibalize. I think we've got to understand that we might be able to explain part of this, but we're not able to predict who's going to turn out to be a serial killer.
Jeffrey Dahmer's father and stepmother, Sherry, say when he was in trouble in the past, they tried to get him help. They were as shocked as everyone else to hear about his secret life.
The pain is watching the families having to sit there and listen to the gory details. And yet, what do we say to these families out there who don't even have the child to bury in many cases? Such a tragic waste. And we can't do anything about it.
They say around them, Jeffrey Dahmer acted as if nothing was wrong.
How did you live that double life? How did you go to work? How did you have a normal relationship with your family?
When you try to keep a terrible secret like I was, it warps every other aspect of your life. But I managed to go to work, conduct myself just like anyone else would.
Jeffrey Dahmer is determined to try to explain his hideous crimes. But why would he take the mask off now? Jack Levin says he thinks he knows.
You know, it's very hard to feel sympathy for someone who has killed 17 people and has cannibalized their remains.
I think he wanted a chance to let people know that he did care, that he was a remorseful human being. Now, I'm not sure that came through, but I think that was his intention.
The families of his victims disagreed. They gathered to watch what Jeffrey Dahmer had to say. They sat in stunned silence as they heard him describe the terrible end to the lives of their sons and brothers.
He says he deserves it. He's on a suicide watch, and from day one, he's never tried to commit suicide. So, I mean, get a clue. He likes living, just like my brother did like living. That's right. Him saying he's sorry.
I couldn't imagine being a family member and finding out that your family, your son, your brother, your cousin, whoever, was done in this way. That's a horrible place to think about being in, and I sincerely feel sorry for these families.
Sorry to me, it does not bring back my brothers, it does not bring back 17 men. I'm against capital punishment, but I still think that he's not suffering enough.
We may never know what demons drove this maniacal killer. Jeffrey Dahmer himself talks about the need to overpower and possess his victims. But Jack Levin says the serial murderer cannot face his own rage.
There was this side where he actually wanted to possess his victims.
Yeah, I did.
But the other side was that he hated them. He was very angry with humanity.
Oh, sorry.
This is kind of his way of getting even.
It would be easier to understand what happened if he came across as the glassy-eyed monster we expect him to be. Instead, he's able to appear normal, which is what once made him so dangerous.
Most serial killers know the difference between right and wrong. They know what they do is wrong, and they simply don't care. Jeffrey Dahmer cared, perhaps, but not enough to stop himself.
And finally, I've been covering this story since it first broke. It has been very difficult at times to deal with the gruesome details, a lot of which we chose not to put on television. But I thought this was an important story to tell.
You probably know Vistaprint for business cards.
Yep.
But did you know we also print these?
Good Lord, Trixie. I would love to see that. Trixie says we have a photo of Gacy dressed as Pogo the Clown. So she's talking about John Wayne Gacy, who he was running for political office. He ran a construction business, and he would lure young men to his house with the promise of work and end up murmuring them and, excuse me, putting them in the crawl space of his house. He would tell them, I'll show you a magic trick, and he would put handcuffs on and pretend to get out of them. And then he would do it to them, and of course they would not be able to get out of them. And then he would basically beat them in the head and like smash them into things until they were deceased and or till he could do unconscious and do whatever. And Trixie says we have a photo of Gacy dressed as Pogo the Clown holding my cousin as a baby. My aunt went to a block party Gacy was at. That is insane and scary. I'm glad your cousin's okay. I don't know. I know he dressed up. So he was also a clown. He would dress up as Pogo the Clown and go to birthday parties. I don't know. I don't think he did anything there, but rumor has it he would dress up as Pogo the Clown after he had knocked the boys unconscious, and then he would enter the alternate personality of Pogo the Clown to do his deeds. So that is crazy. So I'm going to give you another trigger warning. I guess all of these are going to be trigger warnings today. This is Brian Stephen Smith. He committed murmurs in Alaska. I know of one, so off the top of my head, and she was a native Alaskan. And then the next one we're going to look at, Yasser Saeed, is going to be an honor killing. So these are going to be, hard to listen to. Especially considering the aspect of their victim choices. So I just wanted to let y'all know that. So we'll go ahead and get started on this. This is Court TV. It's called A Double Life Interview with Murmurer Brian Stephen Smith.
I actually feel uncomfortable around too many white people. I find I'm bonding closer with the natives
the Alaska Natives.
Really?
Yeah.
So, do you have a penchant for Native women who are homeless in crisis?
It's been called the memory card murder. A brutal homicide found on a stolen cell phone. The victim dying on a hotel room floor. The killer mocking her in a distinctive accent.
Camera bitch.
There's, at one point, blood coming from both sides of her mouth while the killer is sexually molesting her.
He wasn't sexually molesting her. He was poking his fingers on her boob. Okay.
Is that not sexual molestation? In your mind?
It depends on the woman.
I'm gonna mute their intro music. But did you hear that? Like they were saying, sexual molestation by poking her in the boob, and he says it depends on the woman. What does that mean? Are you serious right now, dude? Like that is insane. Could you imagine somebody saying, "Oh, well, is it red rum?" Well, it depends on the woman. It depends on the man. It depends on the person. Seriously? I think it's that across the board, regardless, in my opinion. Okay, I think we're about to start now. Yes. If I remember correctly, somebody stole a cell phone out of his truck, and she went through the cell phone and she saw the video and she turned it into the police and was like, yeah, I stole this cell phone, but you need to see what's on it. This is insane, from what I understand.
I've always suspected that some people aren't at all who they appear to be. To his wife, Brian Stephen Smith was a loving husband. To the Marriott hotel staff, he was a good colleague. To his mistress, he was a spinner of dark sexual fantasies. But to Kathleen Henry, an Alaska native living on the...
Eek, I'm sorry to hear that. Here's the victim. I'm going to give a moment of silence for her. Her name was Kathleen Henry, and she was an Alaskan native living on the streets of Anchorage. And Eek said, I would be homeless if I wasn't married. I have autism and can't hold a job. I didn't mean to highlight that comment, but I'm going to go ahead and be honest here. I used to be homeless as well. I actually was able to get into a mission, and they helped me out. But, way back years and years ago when I was living a life I wasn't very proud of, I did end up homeless. It happens. And I don't like the fact that people judge people for that, because there's people, lawyers, doctors, and things that end up homeless as well. You just never know what circumstances you're going to be dealt in life, and you should never judge somebody on that.
On the streets of Anchorage, Brian Stephen Smith was a stranger who offered a warm bed and then did something monstrous.
Good evening. We're learning more tonight about the weeks surrounding the hotel killing of 30-year-old Kathleen Henry.
39 photos and 12 videos show in graphic detail the final hours of a dark-haired woman. The SD card where the files were stored was labeled homicide at Midtown Marriott.
She was like all beat up. I mean, her face was not even recognizable.
Hello.
Thank you, content. I was just remembering off the top of my head. So I could definitely believe that I'm like half right, even a quarter right. I do want to see. I haven't watched this yet, and there's another one I haven't watched, but I was just remembering off the top of my head. So I'm glad I was at least halfway right.
Brian Stephen Smith was found guilty in February 2024 of murder, sexual assault, and misconduct involving a corpse.
How are we doing, guys?
We're set.
We're good? Okay.
And now, For the first time, he has agreed to tell me his story and to answer for these crimes.
Well, Brian, we're here because we really want to understand the mindset and motivations behind your actions in this case, okay? Tell me, why are you here today talking to us?
Because you asked me to.
You could have said no, but you agreed. Why?
Yes, yeah. Well, I have my side of the story as well that I'd like to get out.
You want to be heard?
Yes, I have to get something out on my side at least.
Smith's side starts when he met a woman who lived very far away from his native South Africa.
You had found love late in life with an older woman, right? Stephanie. Tell me about her.
Yeah, so we actually met playing a game on internet, and we became friends, and we started talking outside of the game.
Mama, he's crazy, crazy over me.
The folk singer from Anchorage fell hard and fast for Smith, just as his life hit rock bottom.
In South Africa, things actually got to a bit of a bad point. I'd gone into a business deal that just went sour, and I lost a lot of money. And it's almost like everything just made sense. You know, just pack up and leave. You got nothing to lose here anymore.
Coming from South Africa, I don't know, how South Africa is, but I know Africa is considered a third world country, and people will travel to go and commit these horrible crimes, especially like going to the Philippines and crimes against young children. I wonder if this is his only victim. Um, that's concerning to me to hear that he's from there, and again, I would wonder how many other victims there could possibly be out there. Bellis, my phone automatically goes to like the darkest mode, and it sucks, and I have to fix it all the time.
Take me back to the first time you stepped foot in this rather stunning land. What did you feel? What did you think?
Well, it was amazing. It's the first time I've been out of South Africa.
He's eating your plants.
With camera in hand, Smith took to the Alaskan wilds and began shooting videos.
This is the beaver dam. I don't know if this GoPro can pick it up, but there's a little beaver house over there.
It's very similar to Africa. You've got the civilized, and then you've got the whole ethnic, rural, indigenous side of things. People that are living in an absolute, totally different world to what we live in.
Are there many South Africans in the Anchorage area?
I think there's 2 or 3 or 4. There might be more, but
maybe a handful.
Yeah.
It also seems.
Abella says the plural for moose is meese. I did not know that. And Eek says those mushrooms. I have a mushroom obsession, let me tell you. South Africa, Zan says South Africa is a wealthy country if you're white. I believe it.
Seems like a good place for a secret life,
content.
if that's what you're looking for. Nobody knows you. There's lots of space. One could lose themselves in kind of withdraw from the world here if one wanted
You're
to.
good, Abellis.
Yes, you could. You're correct. You can go get yourself a little cabin and you never have to deal with humans again.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether Smith was looking for a second life or a secret one in Alaska, he struggled to fit into Stephanie's world.
Are you still married?
I signed the divorce papers about 2 months ago. Stephanie's a very social person, and she's got groups of friends that are in theater and music. At first I thought, yes, I could do it, but then it was just too much for me. They were all trying to be nice.
Right.
But that did cause a bit of problem with us. Yeah.
Well, but let's be frank, right? She was in.
Anders says, I'm that, I don't know what you were trying to say, but I'm that there is someone who wants to have you as an employee, but I understand you lose hope eventually. But autistic people often have skills that non-autistic people don't have, basically, is what you're saying. And yeah, I can agree. Autistic people have a lot. I think it. Excuse me. I think of it as special abilities. They think different and they pick up on things that normal people who don't have autism wouldn't pick up on. So it's actually good to have autistic people employed for you because they think differently. You always want to have people employed for you that think differently and on different wavelengths. If we talk about Elon Musk, who is autistic, look at all the things that he's doing.
As an older woman, you were still quite young, and you had a roving eye, and soon an affair, right, with someone who shared a certain lust for sexual adventure. Is that fair, Alicia?
Enter Alicia Youngblood, a young woman Smith met at work. Smith told police they started off as drinking buddies. Then things progressed.
This crazy sex thing. It was just something that was happening, and I
think about it.
Delved into it. It was interesting for me that I had someone that I could do something, and they would respond to it. Right. I think that's what the main thing is. She was responsive to it.
You say there was a bit of rough stuff, right? She liked to be slapped around a little, choked, suffocated.
Yes,
right?
But it wasn't every time. She liked to see and hear stories about violence. That turned her on. That's what got the engine going.
And this is all illicit, which probably made it even more exciting, right? Because you were married.
Well, yes. The secrecy side of it, yes.
Yeah. Soon, it sounds like the two of you were trying to outdo each other and coming up with mock sexual and violent role play scenarios, right?
Yes. She would tell me about her criminal history. I knew they were not true stories. She would tell me that she'd been chased across America by the FBI, and she was part of a gang that used to rob banks. That's not real, but that's where the whole murder thing started coming in.
And you played along.
So one day I said to her, well, I've also killed somebody, so I've also got a story, and it turned her on massively. It worked. She loved me making up stories like that. If any woman goes to any man and says, say this or do this, and I'll get horny, that guy's going to do it.
By day, Smith says, he and his wife kept up a loving, if passionless, marriage.
It sounds like you did sort of slip into a kind of a double life. The Brian, who's the dutiful husband on the straight and narrow. And then, on the other hand, a reckless kind of alter ego, right? The one who would drive into the night looking for cheap sex.
By night, Smith would troll the streets of Anchorage in his black pickup truck.
I did go out, but it wasn't for going out for sex. Basically, I was having a very stressful life, and I would drink a glass of whiskey just before bedtime. Then that would be midnight. And if that didn't knock me out, sometimes it would give me that, you get your second breath now.
Get a little energy
and
from it.
Then I'd say, oh, now I need to go driving.
It was probably about 9:30 at night.
Okay.
And he pulls up, and I was homeless, living in a tent, and it was raining that night. And he goes, well, it's raining. Do you want to ride around with me? And, and I was like, sure.
Valerie Kassler was on the street one night when Smith drove by. He told her he was looking for a certain young working girl and asked her to help.
You know the streets.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you...
This is interesting. There's some things that I'm learning that I was not aware of about this case. I had to step away real quick to refresh my coffee. I'm seeing y'all talking in the chat. I do agree with microdosing if it is monitored. Just to, since y'all are talking about it, I've always wanted to go to Alaska. I want to just live in a cabin in the woods and build a fire and just stay there for the rest of my life. I would be so happy.
Sure, you're a pretty good judge of character. What was your first impression?
He was nice. We went everywhere. We hung out out at the airport and watched the planes and stuff. I was with him till like about 5, 6 in the morning.
All night long?
Yeah.
When Smith stopped at a gas station to use the ATM, Kessler found herself alone in his car.
That's when I dropped my phone.
In the car?
In his truck, yeah.
You were in the front passenger
Yeah,
seat?
yeah. And when I reached down, I grabbed 2 phones. And you get like that chill feeling,
You just got a vibe from it?
Yeah.
A feeling?
Yeah, that something was not right.
With Smith still inside, Kessler pocketed his cell phone, a decision on which the entire case would hinge.
I went back to my tent and I turned it on, looked to see if I recognize any phone numbers or if I recognize anybody on the pictures, and that's when I found it.
You need your garbage.
That's a sick mother.
Okay, so I didn't know it was the girl that he had in his truck that stole the phone. Could you imagine if that had went different, like if he hadn't have just dropped her back off? Wow, that is insane. I thought that she was walking by and reached in the truck and grabbed it from the center console or something for some reason.
In the fall of 2019, in a tent in the woods around Anchorage, Alaska, Valerie Kessler took out a phone she had stolen from Brian Stephen Smith's car and pressed play.
You need your garbage.
What did you see at first?
Him talking and his voice and her body laying on the floor of the hotel.
She was alive, though, at that point.
Yeah. And he stepped on her throat and he said, "You're not leaving here alive. I'm killing you."
Oh, for fuck's sake. Are you still alive?
I watched all of it. And he pulled out a wire, put it around her neck, and she was dead. And he was still doing things to her.
For days, Kessler refused to leave her tent.
Good God, y'all. I'm sorry. There's a trigger warning scrolling across the bottom of the screen, but that's pretty graphic. Lord have mercy.
You stayed in the woods because you were...
I was paranoid as hell.
You were scared.
Yeah.
But she worked up the courage to turn the videos over to the police.
It was the hardest thing I've ever had to watch in my life, not just being as a police officer. This was the worst thing I've ever seen happen to a human being.
Detective Brendan Lee had a colleague who overheard the videos and the distinctive voice.
He recalled a case that he had worked that involved a male with an accent. And he gave me the name Brian Stephen Smith.
Lee checked the Marriott guest list from the night of the videos, and sure enough,
to see his name on there, it was kind of like like you said, like a big aha moment, like, okay, now we know who we're looking at.
I didn't even know there was a desert part of Washington. I thought it was like, rainforest like up in Washington state. I'm in North Carolina on the East Coast, so I've never even been there. But I always thought it was like a beautiful forest with lots of moss and ferns and things, which ferns grow here, but I didn't know it was like a desert up there in certain parts. That's really interesting, Queen Anne.
then, just days after police got the video,
Human remains found at mile 108 of the Seward Highway a week ago belonged to a woman who had long dark hair.
With a prime suspect and a body to match, the race was on to gather evidence.
The FBI told us, hey, his phone is hitting off a tower near mile 108, the Seward Highway. And also, there was a timestamp on one of the images with Kathleen Joe Henry in the back of the pickup truck. And that was also like an aha moment.
Oh,
because
my
his
God.
phone's hitting here at this time, this image is at this time, and it's at the location where the remains were found.
Detective Lee intercepted Smith at the Anchorage airport, returning from a trip with his wife.
Mr. Smith, I'm Detective Lee, the Anchorage Police Department. I just want to show you my badge, my ID, so you know who you're talking to. This is Detective Bell, my partner. We have some matters we wanted to clear up with you to talk to you today, so I appreciate you coming up here with these guys and talking to me.
This is going to be interesting to watch. Yes, that's a very sweet thing for you to say. Yes, I was born and raised in North Carolina. I guess that's why I have the accent. I don't hear an accent. My husband's from Arkansas, and he's got like a really like hillbilly-ish accent. But thank you for the compliment.
You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that? Yes. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him present with you while you're being questioned. Do you understand that? Yes.
Smith tells me that afternoon, the police caught him off guard.
I just flown all the way from DC
Right.
to here. And you've obviously flown from lower 48.
Sure.
You know what it feels like now.
Yeah.
I flew 4 time zones across a 10-hour flight.
Right.
When I landed, when they stopped me, I was already, in the legal terms of the words they use, is in a weakened state of mind.
When you're under investigation for serious crimes, you don't get to pick
No, I know.
your
I fully
period of
understand.
rest before an interrogation.
I just wanted to show you some pictures, see if they would help you kind of refresh that night.
The detectives start small, without letting on how much they already know about the killer sitting in front of them.
Can you tell me what's in that photo?
There's somebody's feet.
Okay. Yeah. I'm looking at your shoes. I mean, it looks like the shoes you're wearing right now.
Yeah, it does, yeah. But what's happening when that's...
What's happening is on this video, on these images, the person that's recording it is holding the recorder and is standing basically above this girl and strangling her.
Okay.
And so we need to talk about this. We need to get ahead of this, Mr. Smith.
I don't want to act stupid, but I don't remember anything.
Okay.
For an hour and a half, I said, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Over and over and over. In ad nauseum, I said that.
You're not saying that. You're saying that you can't remember.
I do not remember anything like this. Honestly. That looks like a Marriott card. That looks like my truck parked over there. It is.
Piece by piece, detectives disclose photo evidence. Smith's hands, his stomach, Smith's truck and license plate.
There's cameras out on the highway at the way station, so there's no doubt about it that you were out there. No doubt about it that you were out there.
Look, I don't remember anything else, really.
He thinks he's going to be able to talk his way out of it. Isn't it like you saw his heavy breathing and maneuvering in the chairs when they hit him with the pictures, and he's like, he's thinking, oh, I'm fucked.
I'm sorry.
Then, about 2 hours in, Smith starts to crack.
Look, this sounds very serious, no matter what. I'm going to be in deep. So, okay, I'll tell you what I remember. The next day at work, I saw something dripping out the back of my truck. And I was like, what the hell? And I opened up, and there was somebody there underneath. There was a blue, like a top at the back of my truck. And the back flap doesn't really lock. I've actually put a padlock on now since then. And I saw somebody, and I was like, what the hell? What must I do? What must I do? And then the one night I thought, well, I've got to get rid of this. I can't. And I drove out, and I did. I went and dumped it. So, yeah, I did dump it. But
What was in the back of my truck? was not Kathleen Henry.
You're saying that you didn't keep the body in your truck for 2 days and then dump her on the side of the road as you recounted to police?
Well,
Content Angel says the body just popped up in his trunk under a tarp. Yeah, Rick and Morty had a bad experience, and they opened a portal in the back of this man's truck and just dropped the tarp there with the body in it. That's what happened, y'all. It was Pickle Rick.
When I said to the police the body, it's because the police had told me that there was a body in the back of my truck. I did not know what was in the back of my truck. There was something.
You told them that you looked under the sheet and could tell it was a body. You told them that.
It was not a body. It was. I've seen a YouTube once of a bear cub that was skinned, and it looked, in my mind, X-ray vision through that. That's what that could have been, or it was a mannequin or like a sex doll or something.
Are you somebody who's incapable of telling the truth, Brian?
The problem is when I speak the truth, people don't believe me.
I think Brian Steven Smith is a person that I'd say he's a sociopath. You know, if you looked at his life, he would just look like your normal everyday. I go to work, I come home, this is my wife, we go on vacations, and I play with drones and like to shoot guns for my hobbies. I wouldn't say split personality, but he was definitely somebody that knowingly was trying to, live two different types of lifestyles.
For police, the double life of Brian Steven Smith now comes into sharp focus.
Do you have any other Facebook accounts that aren't just Brian Smith?
Oh, yeah, sure. I've got one called Bradley Phillips. Bradley's a real... He's like my alter ego. He's racist. He can make racist jokes and stuff like that.
Smith's alter ego offers police a new strategy.
You think good Brian...
Wow. That's insane. So he's already admitting to having alter egos and all kinds of stuff. This is a narcissist. Oh my God. Like, wow. Textbook.
Wanted bad Brian to get caught. That's why somebody made it so easy for us.
They urge good Brian to confess to what bad Brian has done.
Right now, good Brian, I'm assuming, is who we have here. What do you feel right now about this woman?
Well, she's a pretty girl. And if she ended up like that, that's such a waste.
So, knowing...
Several hours...
Content, that's a really sweet thing to say. Thank you. I'm glad you got up and that you were here. I'm glad that all of you guys are here. Thank you all for being here.
Then, Smith seems to sense the net tightening around him.
Well, I'm sure in the back of my mind, I knew that I was involved there somewhere. It's stupid to believe that someone else killed someone and put him.
You knew in the back of the head, the side of your head, front of your head, you knew you would kill somebody.
Yeah. I can tell you for a straight fact, I did not plan to do this.
Okay.
I've done it. I admit I've done that. I'll sign a piece of paper. Yes, I did it. I know I did it. Yeah.
Before we do that.
With Smith's full-throated confession in hand, the detectives think they're done.
Just have a seat. We'll have time to get somebody. Okay.
And then Smith drops the biggest bomb of the case.
Are you guys in a rush to go home?
Are we in a rush?
Yeah.
You want to talk some more?
We're not in a rush. We got
all night.
I picked up a very drunk girl. My wife was gone. She was away for the weekend. I had to go home. And I shot her.
I knew there was more. I knew it.
You guys in a rush to go home?
Are we in a rush?
Yeah.
Right,
You want to talk some more?
Content. That's what it is. Oh, Abella.
We're not in a rush. We got
all night.
5 hours into a police interrogation, Brian Steven Smith had already confessed to the murder of Kathleen Henry.
If I'm going to burn on the electric chair for one, I might as well do it for two.
Then, Smith volunteered details of a second murder, and police realize they've caught a serial killer.
I shot this girl and then I went and dumped her out on that little side road going towards Butte when you turn off the highway.
This is how you recounted it to the police. Your wife was away, you were drinking. You hit the streets, as in your words you were known to do. You went to get some liquor and you spotted her.
She wanted booze, I knew that. She was drunk. She had a half a bottle of R&R on her there. And she was really drunk. She was slurring it. And I picked her up and I said, hey, you want some warm food and a warm place to sleep tonight?
You bring her home. You were afraid, you tell the police, that she was going to leave her odor in the home and your wife would detect it. So you told her to take a shower.
She was smelling. I knew she was homeless then. You know, she was stinking. And I was getting upset and I said to her, go take a shower, you know, because now there's smell in the house, you know. And she wouldn't do it. She kept saying, no.
He said, I clearly remember this.
Yes, content. R&R is a type of liquor. I do believe. I don't drink much, but I do believe R&R is a liquor. I think it's a whiskey, if I'm not sure.
And again, I'm not lying to you. I don't remember. I can't visualize the girl, but when I went to the garage and I got my pistol and I said to her, go to the shower, and she wouldn't.
And I just did that. And I
While she was on the couch?
Yeah.
Wow. Look at that. Oh my gosh. I think I've seen that movie, Abellis. I've seen that one too where the guy lives in a bus out there. It might be that one. And he ends up like he eats something with a caterpillar bit him or something, and he died from it because he couldn't get medical attention. It was really sad, and it was based on a true story. I actually watched it because Pearl Jam had something to do with that story, and I really like Pearl Jam. I used to like them. I don't like them much anymore, but they used to have good music. My favorite band of all time is Alice in Chains, but I like Pearl Jam, like the 90s stuff. There's another one, yeah, like I said, about a boy that goes out to Alaska to live in a bus, and he gets something to do with a caterpillar or insect, and he gets bit, and he gets sick, and it's like winter, and he can't get medical attention, and they find him the next spring out there. And Pearl Jam did a song or something about it.
I just shot it.
The evidence lined up perfectly with Smith's account. A human skull had been found 6 months earlier at the site Smith named, pierced by a bullet. Police would later find an SD card at Smith's home with a video of a woman lying naked on the floor. Forensics identified the victim as Veronica Abowchuk, another Alaska Native woman who disappeared from the streets of Anchorage.
Veronica was my best friend, and I loved the hell out of her. I knew her daughters, you know. They wasn't working girls. They were just women that had drinking problems, you know.
For Valerie Kassler, who uncovered evidence of Smith's hotel room murder, this second case hit even closer to home.
I remember the last time I talked to her. She said she was going to the liquor store. She's going to get a bottle. And she had to go meet up with somebody. That must have been him, because that was the last time I ever saw her.
Smith's photo evidence and confession left virtually no doubt about his guilt. But today, Smith is trying to sell me a story that sounds nothing like the one he admitted to police. Tell me what happened that night that you brought Veronica Abowchuk to your house.
The person that I shot was a fictitious event. It was not Veronica. Veronica, if that lady was Veronica, that woman walked out of my house, Alicia and her got in a vehicle and they drove away.
Well, then that wasn't Veronica, because the person that you murdered in your home, whose forensics lines up with Veronica Abowchuk, right? she didn't walk out of your home.
That was Alicia Youngblood. That wasn't Veronica.
Smith now recants his detailed confession to the About Chuck murder, and he's trying to persuade me that his confession was all based on fictional role play with his former mistress, Alicia Youngblood.
The story I told them was a story that Alicia and I had made up about driving around, you meet someone and take them home, they make you angry, and you shoot them. I had told Alicia before.
You're saying that was a made-up story?
Yes.
Did you make up the part about defiling her corpse after you killed her?
Oh, no, that was Alicia and myself's story.
You told the police that after murdering her, you sexually defiled her body by sticking your fingers, your hand inside of her. It sounds very much like paraphilia. Do you know that term?
No.
Paraphilia? Characterized by abnormal sexual desires, typically involving extreme or dangerous activities, sometimes intense and persistent interest in inflicting sexual violence or torture on a living person or corpse.
I don't like hurting people.
You don't?
No.
And you're telling me now that what you told the police is false, that you did not murder Veronica Rabacek?
No, you must remember that interrogation was done under duress.
Well, all interrogations are arguably done under duress, but there was nothing unfair about it. And in fact, you could have stopped talking at any point. And instead...
Yes, the name of that movie is Into the Wild. Thank you. And it was about Christopher McCandless. Yes, thank you for that. And it is sad that he preyed on the sick and addicted and vulnerable. A lot of these people do. And it is really sad.
You volunteer a completely different story about an earlier crime.
I was in a weakened state of mind. It made sense to me there that I need to cover all my tracks. Alicia might have told them that story, and I don't tell them and they think I'm lying.
In fact, Alicia Youngblood had told police a story, in secret, on a tip line 1 year earlier.
The first time that I talked to Miss Youngblood, she was nervous. You could tell that talking to her on the phone.
She said Smith had showed her a video of a dead woman.
It's going in her, and then he'd draw his hand out, and he's holding the GoPro, and then he'd wipe his hands on her leg.
She loved this Brian Smith, but now she did not love him anymore after seeing this video. She was very adamant that she thought this video was real.
The pictures are her breast, and he's grabbing them so hard that the blood is pooling.
Youngblood tried to goad Smith into sharing evidence so police could arrest him.
Y'all don't know what I'm doing to get this information. I'm doing all kinds of crazy sexual acts with him to get this information out of him and having to pretend to like it.
She took this fantasy stories, these make-believe stories of ours, and she took it and she started bringing in real people's names.
Could you, I mean, oh my God, they put that girl in a vulnerable situation too, I'm sure, like, because if you're having sex with him, you can't be wired or anything like that. And she's trying to get information from him. Oh my God. That I could not imagine being in that girl's position and trying to go in basically undercover and, do whatever his fantasy is for the day to try to pull information about previous victims. Could you imagine? Lord Jesus, that would be so scary.
Names. And I said to her, no.
Smith was cautious not to give Youngblood any proof, and police soon dropped the case.
I can't do this anymore. He's getting more wild.
Alicia Youngblood left Alaska. She never got the chance to testify against Smith.
We were informed that she had passed away in Oklahoma. It was most likely she took her own life.
The next phase of the case is the opening statement.
Oh my God. You can't tell me that it didn't have anything to do with this, that she took her own life, that it was not related whatsoever. This poor girl felt so bad, she took her own life. Wow. Poor woman. All of them, my God. This is horrendous.
Statements. It wasn't until 3 years
Great
later, in
content.
February 2024, Smith would take center stage in a horror show of his own design.
After this trial, you will all carry the burden of knowing. The burden of knowing that Brian Smith lived, worked, walked among us, mingling and targeting the most vulnerable among us.
Smith's hour in the limelight was just beginning.
Let's bring the jury in. This is a statement. Call your first witness.
My name is Christy Grimaldi. How are you related to this case? Why are you here today?
Veronica Abouchek is my mother. I'm her oldest daughter.
In February 2024, the trial for the murders of Veronica Abouchek and Kathleen Henry began.
In October 2019, I was contacted by family to meet with a detective. And looking back at that, I was in complete denial or holding on to any hope. I remember thinking, wow, they found her. You know, maybe she's somewhere. And it's just, I'm in awe that I believe that, you know.
Smith appeared calm as witness after witness laid out evidence against him. But the smoking gun was the evidence Smith produced himself.
Those videos depict a woman that we now know to be Kathleen Henry being strangled, tortured, and killed. When we show those videos, they're going to be broadcast on that TV facing this way so that members of the general public don't see them.
Police say you're the man in the video. What do you say?
No, it's not me.
I needed a way to push past Smith's denial. If he wouldn't admit to the crimes, could I get him to describe the killer?
Let me describe to you what the man in the video, the killer, did and ask you to profile him for me.
Well, I didn't want to watch him ever at all, but they forced me to at the trial.
My name is Brendan Lee, last name L-E-E. So in this video, it's going to start out and you're going to see Kathleen Henry on the floor.
Are you lying? Are you lying?
There's at one point blood coming from both sides of her mouth while the killer is sexually molesting her. What did you think when you saw that?
He wasn't sexually molesting her. He was poking his fingers on her boob. Okay.
Is that not sexual molestation in your mind?
It depends on the woman. It depends on the situation.
Well, obviously the situation was non-consensual. She's laying there dying. He's telling her he's killing her.
Yeah.
He stands on top of her stomach at one point. He laughs maniacally. What did you make of that?
I don't remember him laughing.
Even as he downplays the cruelty captured on video, Smith offers clues about the man behind the camera.
Did it seem to you that the killer was enjoying himself?
No. The guy sounded frustrated.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Are you still alive? I'm not so tired.
The guy said that like she must hurry up. You know, she must die. She must hurry up.
So the maniacal nature and just absolute disregard for human life here is not even present to him. He's saying that he was frustrated. And as you hear in the video, he's saying, are you gone? Are you, hurry up and go. And he's pointing out that the guy's frustrated that the woman is not deceased yet. Instead of, the complete disregard for human life that's happening. This is disgusting. This man, I hope he rots there for the rest of his life.
People need to cooperate. People need to know when they're, serial killer.
The person sounded like he had lost control.
Like he'd lost control. Interesting. So that it was unplanned, maybe spontaneous?
No, from the wording the guy used, it sounds like he was documenting something, so it was planned.
As you can notice, the tongue is like swollen. That eye is swollen as well.
Why was he documenting?
Yeah.
Why would somebody do that?
Well, they're obviously making money out of it, as far as
Money.
Yeah.
Could he have been doing that to watch it back and get thrills from it?
I don't know, he probably could have. If you find him, you can ask him that.
The killer is giggling and laughing. Do you remember that?
Probably the ugliest part was where he had his foot on her throat.
What kind of man could do that?
A nasty person.
She's making horrific sounds with her dying breaths. Do you remember those sounds?
Well, that was the first noises that came out when the first video played. They showed the girl trying to breathe.
Yeah.
And that I do not like that.
Can you describe them for me and how they made you feel?
I didn't like hearing it. I don't like to hear that stuff.
So he has the throat. He has a string apart. And I'm going to pull the string quickly, okay?
He's strangling her with a green string, straddling over her, right? You remember that? Berating her, fondling her. I'm trying to make a movie, you stupid blood-sucking.
And it sounds like he's doing that for an audience. He's making a movie. He's definitely making a movie.
I'm trying to make a movie, you stupid old bitch.
Weeks after I met Smith, I finally got access to the murder video itself. I can now see what Smith meant by the killer making a movie.
For my fans out there, hit the like button, please. Just take it, swallow it. Let's do a nibble shot while we at here. Do like an angle, like an action shot.
In Smith's twisted mind, he's a film director, and this atrocity is his blockbuster movie.
You live, you die. You live, you die. Sadly, in my movies, everyone dies. I get the Oscar, bitch.
Y'all, I'm sorry. I know that was so hard to listen to. He was definitely a delusional, psychotic puck. Wow. That was horrendous. Good morning, LA. It's nice to see you.
In the end, Smith's movie did meet its audience.
Let's bring the jury in to investigate.
12 men and women, and they quickly delivered a verdict.
Mr. Smith, would you please rise? I will read the form, the verdicts. We, the jury, find the defendant, Brian Stephen Smith, guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in count 1.
Guilty for the murder and sexual assault of Kathleen Henry and Veronica Abouchuk. His sentence? 226 years in prison.
I can tell you as a professional journalist, the evidence against you is insurmountable. You're not getting over it. Isn't there a part of you, you're still a young man, isn't there a part of you that just wants to unload, unburden this whole thing and talk truthfully about what actually happened?
You're glad you're not going to be able to hurt anybody else?
Yeah. But I was hoping that it would have just been that one. I was hoping that that anger in my system would have been out. You know, I don't like to know that I've done that to someone. I don't like that.
It's been 10 years since Brian Stephen Smith first left South Africa for a new adventure on the Alaskan frontier.
At one point, you told the police that Alaska is the perfect place to murder someone.
Yes, but people come here because they antisocial, and If you look at the distances between places, yeah, you could just go dump a body just 5 minutes out of town.
Murder is the third leading cause of death among Native American women. Smith killed 2 of these vulnerable women, at least 2 that we know of.
Did you engage in any sexual violence with Native South African women?
No.
He told me one of his victims was as young as 15, where he's from. I think 15 was the youngest.
Okay.
But on the other hand, we don't know. We do not know, really.
The South African police say they're looking into you now. Any idea what that might be about?
Okay. Again, right in the beginning, Alicia and myself were telling stories, and the first stories I told her were about South Africa.
More stories.
Yeah.
If I can find any poetic justice in this tragic story, it's this.
Trixie, my love, says, I cannot imagine what went through his wife's mind when she found all this out. Could you imagine? Oh, I couldn't. I could not. I mean, knowing that you're married to a monster that did that, geez Louise, and you have no idea because they live a double life. There's a good movie about that too. It's called Gothica. It had Halle Berry in it. I watched it because there was Limp Bizkit redid the Doors song Behind Blue Eyes, and it was in that movie. That's a good movie about a situation like that. And it's from the wife's perspective. If y'all haven't seen that, you should watch it. It's called Gothica. I'll post it on my community post.
Smith landed behind bars thanks to a woman who lived on the streets with his victims.
What do you think would have happened without that video? Had you not found it and brought it
They'd
forward?
probably still be investigating, and he still probably would be a free man, hunting and killing women. And there'd probably be more bodies than what there was.
When you heard the verdict, what did you think?
That was on my birthday.
What a birthday present.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kassler remained on the front lines from the moment she turned over the smoking gun SD card.
Those images that you saw, timing and
Good morning, Pinto. Glad to see you here.
all of that aside, have those stayed with you?
In my head?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted them to go home.
And what do you mean by that when you say you wanted them to go home?
I wanted their parents, their family to be able to mourn and, properly instead of burying an empty box.
Smith tells me he now plans to file an appeal, and I end the interview with one of my own.
You're going to live with this story, this defense that you've concocted in your mind that no one believes, Brian. You must know that no one believes the alibi. No one believes that you're not the man in the video. I mean, again, there's a mountain of forensic evidence against you. Are you going to just live with this?
There is no.
It is possible. I mean, I'm sure there was some kind of signs, like I've said with Steppin' Stearns and all of that. There had to be some kind of signs that, of something he did that just made you say, that was a little weird. Why would you say something like that? Or things that he wanted to do in the bedroom that just were kind of like, what? That doesn't necessarily mean just because somebody wants to do something weird doesn't really mean anything. But, he considered it a double life. So it is possible that she had no idea.
DNA evidence. There's no evidence proving that anyone was in my truck. The only evidence in my truck is the evidence of my alibi. So
and I have 5 pages of quotes from your own lips, Brian, full of admissions and confessions and acknowledgments and appreciation for the police and self-awareness that you've gone too far and now you're in deep.
Yes, that is non-confrontational de-escalation.
I don't think anybody would consider that de-escalation. That sounds like a guilty man who's coming clean.
In the end, Brian Smith's double life culminated in a single fate: a life sentence in an Alaskan prison.
I got no one to talk to now.
What's that?
I've got no one to talk to now, so none of my friends will ever.
Well,
It's this is my fault. I've dug my own grave here. I did this to myself. I can't blame anybody else, you know.
That was hard to listen to. So we got one more to go over today. And there's plenty more that we'll go over too in the future.
Um,
The next one,
because you asked me to.
this next one is going to be an honor killing. I don't know if you know what honor killings are, but in the I'm going to say Muslim, but I could be wrong. I want to be very careful about how I say this. Some Muslim fathers have an idea of who their daughters are going to marry from the time they're very young, and it is a belief in certain countries and certain places that the father sets up the marriage and you will marry who your father has set up for you to marry. And if you refuse to do it, or if you don't want to do it, then they have the right to kill you. There's usually money or goats transactions involved. The daughter is basically bought by the groom's family. And I'm going to leave, that's all I know for sure. And it's not in every household, and some people do things differently, but an honor killing is basically where, from what I understand, and again, if I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me. The daughter was supposed to be married to a certain person, and she does not want to marry that certain person. And so her brothers or her father gets rid of her. And that's what this is going to be talking about.
Political points.
Yes.
You say the FBI knows that you are innocent?
They know that.
You make it sound like you're the victim here.
Exactly.
Behind every murder,
Thank you.
there's a mind that conceived it.
Amina later wrote, you intended to sell them to the highest bidder.
Okay.
What do you think about
Very
it?
funny.
Did you kill your daughters to shut them up?
Oh, this is not truth. This is just accusation.
The mind behind the murders of 2 teenage girls in Texas belongs to Yasser Saeed, their father.
It's called an honor killing.
Honor killing.
Honor killings.
Oh my God, I just realized I'm recording.
Nicely.
Saeed is now on the FBI's 10 most wanted list.
We have no indications where he may be or where he has gone to.
Now, after finally being captured and convicted, Yasser Saeed is ready to talk for the first time about the so-called honor-killing murders.
Let's talk about the night of the murders. Tell me, Mr. Saeed, in your own words, and in as much detail as you can, what happened that night?
Because I don't want to get in trouble for the music. I'm going to skip it ahead just a smidge. Again, I want to give you a trigger warning. These interviews are talking about, natives and honor killings and things is hard to listen to. So just beware.
It's easy to get lost in Texas. You can disappear among the crisscrossing interstates and the vast empty landscapes. I'm on my way to confront a man who did just that.
Really, Anders? I didn't know.
For years,
Sorry.
Yasser Saeed was one of America's most wanted, a fugitive hiding somewhere between the Texas tumbleweed. But before he vanished, this father of 3 did something I couldn't fathom.
Harvey 911, what are you ready? What's going
going on, man?
I'm dying. Oh my
God. On New Year's Day 2008, 18-year-old Amina Saeed and 17-year-old Sarah Saeed were discovered shot dead in their father's abandoned taxi in Irving, Texas. The crime made national news.
According to police, their father, Yasser Saeed, a cab driver who'd emigrated from Egypt, was adamantly opposed to his daughters dating anyone.
Their murders were dubbed honor killings in the media.
It's called an honor killing.
Honor killing. Honor killings. Honor killing is murder, condemned by all major religions, but condoned in certain old tribal customs around the world. The victims are often young women resisting the control of the male heads of household. The killers are often their own fathers, who blame the victims for bringing shame onto the family and death onto themselves.
Right. And a lot of times the older brothers will be involved as well. Queen Anne says, I remember hearing about this one too. I remember this one too. I watched something about it a couple of years ago. So sad. I know. Did you see the pictures of them as babies with that long, beautiful curly hair? Oh my gosh. They were adorable. Like I said before, this one's going to be hard to hear too. And I apologize. It's just, with the subject matter, it's going to be hard for any of this.
Yasser Saeed grew up in Egypt, but his daughters were all American.
Look at her eyes. She is absolutely gorgeous. I just wanted to say real quick, this again is Court TV. And it's called Honor Killings / Interview with a Killer. And this is Yasser Saeed.
And tough
Good morning, AM. Thank you for being here.
Texans to boot. Intelligent, ambitious, and independent.
Oh my God, I just realized I'm recording. This is my room. Well, mostly mine. It's partly Sarah's. Oh, here's Sarah. She's on the laptop. Let's see. Hey, Sarah.
For the victims, justice would be long delayed by their father's conniving. News outlets across the country covered the missing Saeed.
To this point, we have no indications where he may be or where he has gone to.
Saeed is now on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, but despite thousands of tips and a $100,000 reward, he is still out there.
For 12 years, Saeed evaded capture, and the case languished. Finally, the FBI found him hiding in plain sight, just 30 miles from where the murders took place. He was arrested in 2020 and later convicted of murder.
All right.
They were absolutely stunning. They were absolutely gorgeous.
I'm driving east from San Antonio. At the end of this lonely highway is the man responsible for Amina and Sarah's horrific deaths. Yasser Saeed has agreed to be interviewed here for the first time. And after hiding quietly as a fugitive for more than a decade, today he says he's going to talk.
Y'all are fine talking about that stuff in the comments that's related to the case. I don't mind. We're all open here. And I like, you can talk about anything. And I appreciate hearing all of the information that you guys have to share.
And I'm going to get inside the mind of a murderer.
The heinous, horrific nature of some crimes. Those are difficult things for people to understand. Abducting, torturing, and murdering a child. How could someone do that? I spent well over 2,000 hours conducting face-to-face examinations of violent criminal offenders, particularly murderers. It's important for people to understand how these individuals think, how they process information, what their emotional reactions are, or what their lack of emotional reactions are.
Good morning, Mrs. Good morning. You've agreed to sit with me for an hour, right? And truthfully answer my questions.
Okay.
You've agreed to that, right?
If I can, of course, yes.
And so why are you talking to me today?
Today, I want my voice be heard. The FBI knows that. My case is being used to achieve cheap political points.
Cheap political points?
Yes.
You say the FBI knows that you are innocent?
They know that. And I will tell you why.
Let me ask you this. In your letters to the judge, right, you write, in my case, you could smell conspiracy in the atmosphere.
Yes.
So that's what this is about. Conspiracy, conspiracy, conspiracy.
Of course.
After all these years, do you still deny your guilt, sir?
TV.
Harvey, 911, what is your emergency?
I'm going to try and get inside the mind of a man who murdered his own daughters, a crime he still denies. But first, I just need to get him talking.
Mr. Saeed, but before we get into the case, we'd like to learn a little bit more about you. You come from Egypt, right?
Yes, yes.
And you married into a rather poor white American Christian family.
Yes. Tessie, they call her Tessie.
You were 30 years old, right?
Almost 29, yeah.
29. And she was a minor, right?
She was 15 or 16. She was 16.
In fact, Tissy, or Patricia Saeed, was only 15, below the legal age of consent in Texas.
That is a very big age difference.
Here, yes.
You understand that?
Yeah.
Right? In your culture, is that quite common?
Yeah, that's common over there. Yeah.
Not common.
Yeah.
Shortly after you're married, you have these two beautiful daughters. What do you remember about them?
They like, they are smart, they study. I have a library full of movies about them. I was walk with the camera in my hand.
Yeah. You have a lot of home movies, right?
About almost 100.
100. I remember you talked about that in court. You talked about how these home videos show what a loving father
exactly
you were.
if this, how these people, you can tell if you look to the kids.
Okay. Zan, that's okay. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here with us today, and thank you for listening.
Face, you can tell if this kid's happy or he have a problem. You can tell.
Yasser Saeed's home videos ended up in the possession of a documentary filmmaker named Nina Najad, who set out to tell the girl's story while Saeed was still in hiding.
We wanted the nation to know who he was and what he had done. He was obsessed with videotaping, mostly the girls. It was a great insight into not just their lives, but also into Yasser Saeed and just his perversions, his control.
Yes, I will.
It was definitely a treasure trove of information.
What was Amina like growing up?
She's a normal teenager. She's okay. She's smart and.
Sorry. Hold on just a minute.
I really, they are good kids. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And Sarah, what was she like?
It's the same. She and her sister, they are very close.
I noticed a shift in Saeed's demeanor when I asked him to describe his daughters. His eyes wandered. His voice got quiet. He lost the excitement he'd shown over his home movie collection. These small or micro gestures can be revealing about the mind of a murderer, says Robert Hanlon of Northwestern University Medical School, who reviewed our interview and studied the case.
Father actually is example for his kids.
The father's an example.
And they never saw me like doing something wrong, going to nightclub or drunk, have habit to drink, or alcoholic or drugs, do drugs. Like, they didn't see that. I consider myself example for them.
He's not interested in discussing these types of family issues. He wants to talk about himself. This man is extremely egotistical, self-centered. Some, particularly some psychopaths, narcissistic psychopaths, they want the attention.
Now, your daughters were born and raised in Texas, right? And they were becoming naturally more Americanized, and that was a problem for you, right?
No. We like America. We like the rules in America. We like it.
What about women's and girls' rights?
We like
the freedoms that women and girls have here to choose their own lifestyles.
This is East and this is West. You have to understand, we can work together. We can do beautiful things together. But sometimes when you come to issues like a family, we look different view.
When they entered their later teenage years, they naturally became more interested in boys, right?
This has happened with most of the family here, raising girls in America. Yes,
right. Boys
this is fact.
And boyfriends. But for you, that was strictly prohibited.
Eek, please don't cry. If you need to go and not be here this morning, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to stay if it bothers you to that extent. If you want to stay more, you're more than welcome. I just don't want to make you overly upset today and make you have a bad day, love.
Is that fair?
I don't like this. I'm telling you.
So no dating and no sex before marriage.
No dating, no sex, no alcohol.
That was your rule.
No alcohol, no drugs, no party.
But those rules didn't apply to Saeed, according to film director Nina Najad.
Yasser is not a religious person. Yeah, he grew up in a Muslim household, but it's not like he went to mosque every day. He drank, he smoked, which those are all against the Quran. So he's not this pious Muslim man. It is very much about control. It's very much having dominance, being the head of the household. And, when you have your daughters who are rebelling, you have to gain that control.
Jenny Jen, okay, love. Have a good day.
You wanted...
And thank you for being here.
The girls to be wed in arranged marriages in Egypt, right?
It's arranged marriage now. This is big story because some people, they don't know what that means. They think we force the girl to marry the man we like, which is wrong.
Amina later wrote about her fears that you intended to, and these are her words, quote, sell them to the highest bidder, to an older man that she did not love in a land that she said she hated.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What do you think about it?
Very funny, really. I'm laughing. Did you see me? I laugh. It's very funny.
There's a spontaneous laugh there. He's laughing at her. To me, that's very revealing about his character. He's a wall of denial. He wants to try to spin this with regard to the deaths of his two daughters.
You were spying on the girls, right? You were following them with your camera when they were at work.
She can see us from inside, right?
How?
She smiled to the customer.
Bubba, she has to. Part of her job.
She's in trouble. You're talking about our culture. Our culture, in the family, there's this chain of command.
Chain of command?
Yes. I'm direct my kids. Right. I'm telling them what to do to make sure they didn't harm themselves, they didn't go do suspicious activity. That's my right.
Including sex, right?
No, we don't allow this to happen.
I was working my way into Saeed's psyche and to the crux of the case, his desire to control his daughters and their sexuality.
How important was your daughter's virginity to you?
This is a very important issue to anyone in the Middle East.
And I imagine that if they were not virgins, that could compromise or undermine a plan to arrange their marriages, right?
Mostly no one marry a girl she's not virgin.
So if they were
That's
having
in the
sex,
Middle East, not here.
if they were having sex, would that have given you a motive to kill them?
No, no.
No?
No, I told you I didn't think the way they think over there in the Middle East.
Let's talk about the night of the murders.
Jenny Jen says, if this live becomes too much for anybody, feel free to take a break and come back on the replay. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, smiling at work and they're getting in trouble. I don't understand why you would concern yourself with things like that. It's just ridiculous, in my opinion.
Tell me, Mr. Saeed, in your own words, and in as much detail as you can, what happened that night?
The trial of a wife who's accused of killing her husband.
This one is hard because, again, I want to be respectful to other religions, but this is a hard case. That's creepy.
Yasser Saeed's daughters left a trail of incriminating evidence in the weeks before he killed them on New Year's Day 2008.
On December 24th, Amina and Sarah told people, including their mother, that you threatened Amina with a gun, you threatened to kill her. She told the teacher she was going to run away because her father would kill her if he found her, right? They left the home.
No, I didn't do any threats to my family.
Well, then why would they lie about that? Should we not believe their own words?
This was December the 21st of 2007, correct?
That is correct.
It turns out Amina and Sarah had confided in a teacher about their father's violent threats and their plan to escape.
Hey, Ms. Hopkins, it's Amina. Sarah and I were talking, and we're having a lot of issues at home. We both decided that you're the only person that we can 100% trust. God, I am so scared right now. It's crazy. My dad began checking phone records, and he took my sister in the room and specifically threatened to, quote, hurt her very badly, close quote, if she didn't tell us what was going on. And in the body of this email were these things that Sarah and Amina had talked to you before.
Yes.
They ran away in fear for their lives of what you would do to them. You don't deny that, right? They did leave the home and run away.
First, this day, it was, to me, normal day. I'm going to work, and suddenly the phone battery is go down. And I decide to go home to fix it. I got spare. And I find my son sitting in the driveway. He said, Tessie, she takes the girls and I don't know where they go.
They ran away because they were afraid, according to
That's what
Amina's notes.
That's what I don't know yet. They are running away. I don't know yet because there is no fighting, no problem, no nothing.
In fact, after years of abuse and recent threats from their father, Amina and Sarah, along with their mother Patricia, secretly fled the Saeed home on Christmas Day 2007, hoping to start a new life.
Sarah was dating a boy named Eddie, and Amina had a friend, Eric. In December, Eddie and Eric decided to help the girls leave. They eventually do get an apartment together, all of them.
But after just 1 week, their mother tricked the girls into returning home to their father.
Patricia wants to go back to put flowers on her mother's grave. Amina ends up going to a friend's house, and Patricia takes Sarah home. That's when Amina finds out that her mom actually lied, that she was never planning on visiting the grandmother's gravesite, that they were actually going back to Yasser. And that's when it all happened after that.
On New Year's Day around 7 p.m., Saeed told Amina and Sarah
Why would the mother take them back there? I don't understand why she would do that.
that he wanted to take them out to dinner to talk. He put the girls in his taxi cab and told their mother she wouldn't be joining them. Tell me, Mr. Saeed, in your own words, and in as much detail as you can, what happened that night?
I was going to talk to them, and their car was following me.
And you became alarmed that you thought you were being followed.
Yes.
Right? And then what happened next?
I stopped in an area where everyone can see us. The Dart bus station. I left.
You left the car?
I left. I was mad, and I left. Just take myself and left.
You were mad or you were afraid?
Both. And you need to know who's follows this car. They said, oh. Later on in the court, I find out the father of the boy, one of the boyfriend, it was one of this car, because I say two cars, they say one car, but I guess.
Saeed claims it was out of fear of unknown assailants that he abandoned his car and daughters and fled the scene before they were murdered. But none of that adds up. You had never reported any threats against you. You never called the police or asked for help. Why did you think you were in danger?
They want to get rid of me, not the girls.
Who wanted to get rid of you?
The ones they follow me.
Who would be following you and trying to get rid of you?
That's what FBI want to know.
That's what the FBI
what this
wants.
car was follow me. This car, these two cars. Why they was follow me and what they see. And where is the man who was follow me? Where he go? This is not important questions. I smell the conspiracy is very strong.
The smell of conspiracy. Saeed has offered this explanation before. At his trial, he surprisingly took the stand with the help of a translator and suggested a conspiracy had implicated him in the crime.
It was a secret agenda, and then all the media was steered in a certain direction and fueled against me, that I will not get a fair trial.
Isn't it interesting how all of them, like, they place themselves away from the crime? It's not them, it's somebody else every single time. They can't take accountability for their actions. Except Jeffrey took accountability for his when he was finally caught. But these guys can't. They're narcissistic assholes.
Prosecutors say there was no conspiracy against Saeed the night of the murders, only a coincidence that he later seized upon to point the blame elsewhere. Amina's boyfriend testified that he and his father happened to see her in the taxi and briefly followed before driving away without intervening. But Saeed still claims an international conspiracy framed him for the crime.
How when I get arrested, they launch this law right away in United Arab Emirates.
You're saying that your case is a conspiracy to change the laws in the Emirates?
Yes.
That's absurd. Phone records from the night of the shootings leave no...
He's not taking accountability at all. No accountability whatsoever. And they always seem to place themselves away from the crime in ways that are just not logical in the least.
Doubt about Saeed's bizarre alibi. Saeed answered a call from the girl's mother at exactly 7:29, still with the car and his daughters. He made no mention of any threat or cars following him. You were in the car at 7:29. You took that phone call.
I guess, yeah.
Right. And then 4 minutes later, just 4 minutes later, your brave daughter, Sarah, uses her last breath to call 911. 4 minutes later.
Bellis, that's right. He's talking about the Arab Emirates, but he's Egyptian. That is weird to me.
So this elaborate conspiracy you talk about would have had to happen between 7:29 and 7:33.
I'm not sure about the time.
You had a gun, a firearm in the car?
No, I was not have the gun in the car. I wish I have it.
But your testimony in court, you acknowledged leaving the gun in the car.
So, what did you do with your gun? Anything. Because it's a dangerous area when I'm going to work at night, I would take my gun with me and place it between the seat and the cubby. But not every day.
Avoid these foods if you want to lose weight fast.
He's not remorseful. He's not sad. There was no emotion here in the 911 call. The last dying breath of his child was saying, my dad did this.
You left the gun
He still can't take accountability for it. This is insane.
in the car. Is that what you're saying? Yes.
Why would you leave your gun behind?
At this time, you didn't think about guns. You think about to run for your life.
You were running for your life?
Yes.
And you didn't think to keep your gun to protect yourself?
And notice he was running for his life. He didn't get his daughters and get out of there. He ran, per his story, he ran away and just left them behind to die. Again, even in his fake story, showing who's most important to him.
There are so many contradictions in your story. That's why I'm asking you. You sensed danger, but you left your girls to face it on their own.
I never thought it would go that far.
You never thought they would go that far?
Shooting. I thought I am the one they target me, not the girls.
But how would you know? If you didn't know who was after you, you didn't know why, you thought there was a threat, but you left your girls to face it themselves? What father would leave his girls behind to face danger on their own?
Well, this was a mistake. I said I'm not supposed to stop to begin with. I said that. But the issue is, where is the camera? Why they don't want to see the camera? The surveillance camera.
You make it sound like you're the victim here. Is that what you believe?
Exactly.
You're the victim?
Yes.
It is not uncommon for individuals convicted of murder to spin the crime as if they were somehow victimized. Because classic antisocial personality, he's going to lie directly to the interviewer. He's going to lie directly to the camera because he believes it's in his self-interest to do so.
In this letter to the judge, Saeed also makes the claim that his case was being used by the U.S. government to pressure the United Arab Emirates to change its laws on sex, alcohol, and honor killings.
The case was called the honor-killing murders in the media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Why is it
What do you think
that?
about the practice of honor killings? Is that condoned in your culture?
I tell you this. I'm telling you. If you want to know, I'm telling you. Over there, I'm telling you about how they think, how's their mind over there. They have closed mind in this issue. But for me, because I live in America more than 4 decades, I think different than these people. But if you want to know, yes, over there, this is issue.
Sarah and Saeed should get together. That would be a relationship formed in hell. Yeah, it don't work on my end. So I try to play it for you guys, but I can't ever tell if it plays or not. I don't know why, but I'm glad it worked.
So honor killing is essentially if you do anything to dishonor the family. So basically anything that brings shame to the family, especially as a woman or as a young girl. In order to restore the honor back to the family, basically have to kill you. It's your life for the honor.
The victims tend to be individuals who are defiant and unwilling to follow the commands of the father figure or the adult male who expects the child to marry someone that has been chosen by the father.
Although sometimes associated with Muslim countries, the practice of honor killing has no basis in religion. It originates in certain tribal cultures around the world.
It's actually nowhere in the Quran in regards to any of those things. I mean, these are culturally based beliefs.
But there was a terrible...
I did not know that. I thought it was in the Quran. I did not know that. I'm glad that I was educated on that. That it's just tribal customs, not in the Quran.
irony behind the media headlines in Saeed's case. In the years leading up to their murders, it wasn't Amina or Sarah who brought shame to the family. It was Yasser Saeed himself. There's the question of your own sexual assaults against your daughters when they were young children.
Nice cake. Take this blanket from this one in the back.
No!
Go.
No! Get away!
Okay.
No! Get out!
Here's the other one.
Get out!
No man is born evil.
So you chose
Oh my
bad.
God.
On the next interview with a kid.
Oh my God. Y'all. Lord have mercy. I wonder who that one is. I have to watch it when it comes out. Okay.
Then there's the question of your own sexual assaults against your daughters when they were young children.
Did this court say that? This is accusation. Why you bring accusation?
It's not just an accusation. You were investigated for it.
If you have something against me, why you bring accusation?
Because it's part of the record. It's not just an accusation. You were actually investigated and indicted for it.
Indicted? I go to jail.
You were indicted for 2 counts for penetration of the vagina and or anus of a child by penis and or finger.
No. This is all fake. This is false.
These are lies?
What you mean? Why I didn't go to jail for it? Wow, look at these eyes. If I put my eye on you.
I'm gonna get sick now. Okay, turn it off, Dad.
So in 1998, Amina and Sarah had told Trisha's mom that their father was abusing them sexually. And they ended up taking him to the police. They filed a report, basically that he would go into their rooms and touch them, fondle them. There was supposedly penetration. We know the police did do an investigation and they did indict Yasser Saeed. And then later on, they recanted their stories. So I think there was some fear factor used to have the girls recant the story.
Excuse me, if you had evidence that that was happening, it doesn't matter if the victim recanted their story or not. Obviously, they're small children and they're afraid. And you also have to take into consideration that that was their father that was doing it. So the fact that they even came out and said anything to begin with is amazing. But you had evidence. How did you, how did that just get swept under the rug and he's allowed to stay there with them? What? Excuse me? No, ma'am. No, sir. I don't think so.
Testimony at trial revealed that Saeed threatened to kill his wife if the girls didn't recant. And out of fear, they did. The case was then dismissed. You don't deny that this indictment is part of the record, right?
No, this is false.
False.
This all...
Why would your 8-year-old and 9-year-old daughters tell people that my father put his front part inside my front part?
No, that's
he was wearing gray shorts and a t-shirt.
No,
very
that's
detailed
really
accusations that were then investigated and you were in fact indicted.
No, that's nothing even close to the truth.
I think growing up in the Saeed household must have been very tough, very hard, very emotionally and physically and mentally draining. You have a father that's explosive, that's abusive, who's watching your every move. You probably feel very caged.
It's just as likely that he killed these girls because he had lost control of them and they were going to pursue other sexual interests, which he could not tolerate. That to me is very different than the concept of honor killing.
Amina, just weeks before she was murdered, she told a teacher.
So again, they're stating that this is going to be very different than an honor killing because it was more of a control thing. And he wanted to control them for the rest of their lives, and that was the issue. And it wasn't an honor killing. We got about 10 more minutes left of this. And then we're going to look. I did have the brain scans of Jeffrey Dahmer pulled up for, I think it was EQ asked. We'll look at that, and that'll be it for us today. I did try to save this one for last because I knew it would be hard. I do appreciate y'all being here. But if you need to step away from this one, feel free. I understand completely. It's hard to listen to.
About the tension in the household and that she was terrified of you. She said, "We are running away before the break ends. I know he will search for us until he finds us, and he will, without any drama or doubt, kill us." She's talking about you.
Well, I don't think this is true.
You don't believe that?
No, I didn't believe that.
It's in an email she wrote to a teacher.
I don't know how this email is made, and I don't know if it's real or not.
You think it could be a fake?
I think so.
Really?
I think so, yes.
Would that have given you a motive to kill them? Not because of their disgraceful behavior, but to cover up your own disgraceful behavior. Amina was talking about your sexual abuse of her again. And she told the teacher that when we were younger, he used to do things, and he started hinting at them again. Did you kill your daughters to shut them up from making these accusations?
Oh, this is not true. This is just accusation. Why in a serious case like this?
These are her words,
what
sir.
You bring accusation.
These are Amina's words.
He said.
We're talking about your daughter, Amina.
Huh?
These are her words.
No. I didn't believe that's even her word.
You don't believe
I didn't believe it. No, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't believe this paper. I don't know.
You still say this is a political conspiracy. Even with all this evidence, let me ask you this, Mr. Saeed, because
He was blinking fast. He's looking away. Right now you can see the movement. He's very animated. He's having trouble explaining it away and making it believable.
your story defies logic and common sense, and frankly, all belief. I'm not even sure you believe it. But your family certainly doesn't seem to believe it. The jury didn't believe it. It's impossible to imagine that these crimes are the result of an elaborate conspiracy when, in fact, your daughters had been threatened, they say, by you, and were found dead in your taxi cab, last seen with you. Does that make sense to you?
Listen, I guess I say everything to you. I answer every questions. No, the FBI didn't do their job. The Irving police, they hide something. The media was not honest in this case, especially in this case, to achieve political point overseas. That's all what I can say to you. I'm sorry.
Okay, again, you're not important enough for them to need to use you to prove any kind of political anything having to do with overseas. You're not that important, sir. If you were somehow tied to political affiliates, or the leader of some big tribe over there or something, then it could be a possibility, but not with all this evidence. You're just a sick mofo. This has nothing to do with a conspiracy, sir. Stop it right now.
12 years you stayed hidden. Is that the action of an innocent man? You never turned yourself in. How were you able to do that? Okay. Immediately after the murders, you disappear for 12 years. You didn't even go to the funerals to mourn them.
Go to the funeral?
Yes.
I will not get fair trial. That's why.
But you
didn't.
disappeared even before there were media reports.
Yes, Eek, illusions of grandeur. Thank you.
How you want me to go to the funeral?
What innocent man would not go to mourn their daughters at their funerals?
Most of the people advise me
Oh, he wouldn't have been there regardless because he didn't value them. Look at them babies. Jesus.
not to go to the funeral.
Who told
now.
you not to go to the funeral? Huh? Who told you not to go?
Everybody.
Everybody? What do you mean, your family?
No, even the community.
How were you able to stay hidden for so long?
When people around you, when your community know you're not a criminal, you get help from the community.
You mean your family?
No, the community too, by itself.
Oh, no. The Muslim people in your community tell us that you didn't attend mosque. They didn't really know you. You didn't even attend the mosque service for your daughter. So I highly doubt that the mosque helped you. For years, the FBI scanned the globe looking for Saeed. But filmmaker Nina Najad had a hunch. Could Saeed be hiding in plain sight, right there in Texas?
We went to another brother's house, talked to the daughter briefly, gave her my card, told them what we were doing, and we just really wanted to hear their side of the story. And then later on is when we got the death threats.
Yasser Saeed's son Islam had let loose his rage and tipped his hand.
It was scary. It was kind of unexpected because for you to go to that extent to try to threaten me shows me that you're scared. And why would you be scared unless you're hiding something or something? Because they could have just not said anything.
Nina Najad's film, The Price of Honor, was released in 2014 and raised awareness that Saeed was still on the run.
When we premiered it in Dallas, we had security because we knew some of his family members were going to be there. And so we had security. So I know they're aware of the film.
The movie helped put Saeed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list.
I'm glad that she was able to draw attention to this case and get it put on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. That is really sad, Abellis, but yeah, unfortunately, that is how it goes sometimes.
And law enforcement soon got a tip about an inconspicuous house in Justin, Texas, just 30 miles from where Amina and Sarah were killed. Police watched the house for several days and finally arrested Yasser Saeed 12 years after the murders.
It's remarkable to me that he was able to maintain his freedom and not be detected by law enforcement as long as he did. This is a fairly smart guy who was able to pull that off.
Saeed's brother Yassain and son Islam orchestrated an elaborate system for supplying the fugitive in his hideout. Both are now serving long sentences in federal prison for aiding and abetting. Mr. Saeed, you seem to be without conscience or remorse, either for the dead or the living whose lives you ruined. Are you not prepared today to take responsibility for any of your crimes?
I didn't do crime. My history, check my history first, because you talk about somebody. I'm the only one here without criminal record, without crime. And you know that because when it's come to politics, it becomes dirty.
Amina herself, she knew this was going to happen. She told people this was going to happen. We are running away before the break-in.
I don't know whose
I
people she
know that
told.
he
I
will
didn't hear.
search until he finds us,
Now
and he
this
will,
didn't
without
make
any
sense.
drama or doubt, kill us. Those are the words of your own daughter, Amina, about you. Just
I think that part where she says, without any drama or doubt, do what he did. I think that they're repeating something that he said word for word, without any drama or doubt. That part right there. Without any drama or doubt, I will do you. You know what I mean? And I think that they were quoting him when they wrote that letter in that part.
weeks before you murdered
Right?
them.
I didn't murder nobody.
Exactly.
I didn't murder nobody.
Why would she write this?
And also, I didn't do crime, but I hid for years. Okay.
I don't think even she writes this. I don't know. This is very shocking news for me. I don't know. I just treat my kids very nice.
Let me read some of her other words to you that you might. God, I am so scared right now. As you know, we are not allowed to date, and my dad is trying to arrange my marriage. We do not want to live by the culture or marry men from over there, especially men we do not know or love. My dad began checking phone records, and he took my sister in the room and specifically threatened to, quote, hurt her very badly if she didn't tell what was going on with the dating. When we were younger, he used to do things, and he started hinting at them again.
That's wrong.
He has simply made our lives a nightmare. He's one man, not God. Someone should be able to stop him. Those are your daughter's words, sir.
No, I didn't believe this is her word because what I see is different. I always take care of them. I always take them everywhere. See, that didn't make sense.
Why would she say these things?
I don't know. I don't think even she say that.
Are you sure you don't want to take this opportunity to face up to these crimes and take responsibility for your actions?
No, I didn't
Right, Eek.
do any crime. That's check my history to know who's you talking about before. I didn't do any crime. That's all. That's all what can I do. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much. I want you to, okay.
With that, Yasser Saeed had enough. The interview was over. He disappeared once again, just like he had years earlier, but this time into the bowels of a Texas state prison where he will spend the rest of his life.
They wanted to be average teenagers, average American girls. You know, they had dreams, they had hopes, they had, you know, ambitions and things they wanted to do in life. I think they were just both amazing, amazing human beings, very strong, very just loving and caring, nurturing.
Oh my God, I just realized I'm recording. Oh, here's Sarah. She's on the laptop. Let's see. Hey, Sarah.
Had they survived their father's wrath, Amina and Sarah would have been in their early 30s today. I imagine Amina might have realized her dream of becoming a doctor. And maybe they would have had daughters of their own by now, raised in the safety and freedom their mothers fought for to their last breaths.
One of the things with Amina, the last things that she posted was she made this like little card with her picture saying, I don't want to be a memory. And that was one of the things that we wanted, is for her not to just be a memory, for people to know her and her story.
Wow. I walked away from Yasser Saeed and his new home with a heavy heart, weighed down by the girl's loss and all his stubborn denials. Murder is the ultimate betrayal of humanity, and this one sears the soul. I'm grateful to walk out the prison gates and leave it behind, at least for now.
Ooh, that was hard. Those poor girls. Good God. I hope we can remember them for who they were, and not this horrible thing that happened to them. So I think Eek was asking about the scans of Jeffrey Dahmer. So I have this article pulled up. Yeah. he is forever a bastard. So it says inside the brain of a serial killer. This is Jeffrey Dahmer, Pedro Lopez, and Ted Bundy have all committed some of the most horrific crimes. People are often shocked by their acts and wonder, how can a human being be so ruthless with no remorse? Although the answer is yet a mystery, psychological characteristics may provide insight to their curiosity. It's not going to let me read the full article. Okay, hold on. I can go back because I did pull up like some actual scans. Let me make sure y'all can see. So I was looking at this. I tried to pull this up, but it didn't look like it made it big. Or it wasn't there yet. The page isn't working. I'm going to try to reload it once. No, it's not working. Let's see what this is. Okay. Well, that's AI generated. I don't know. It's not pulling it up. Let's see about this one. Oh. Duh. Okay. Jeffrey Dahmer's brain. It says inside. So there's scans of his brain. And it says in 1995, serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer was on trial, or at least his brain was. This trial was not to convict Dahmer of murdering and cannibalizing 17 mostly young black men. This trial would decide whether Dahmer's brain should be donated to science or cremated. And again, I'll read it until I can, but it's not going to let me read all of it. His mom wanted answers. Joyce requested that scientists study her son's brain to determine if biological factors caused his violence. His dad wanted closure. Lionel wanted his son's brain cremated and to put the saga behind him. And on December 13th, 1995, a judge ordered Dahmer's brain cremated, forever preventing scientists from revealing its secrets. But decade later, neuroscientists have studied the criminal mind and found commonalities. So that's all I'm going to be able to pull up about that. Oh, I might not have been reading some about the, I'm sorry if y'all couldn't see the picture. It won't let me read the article. Eek, it was showing me, I'm sorry you couldn't see it. It was saying I had to sign in to read the article. I apologize, Eek. I wasn't sharing the right page, but it wouldn't let me sign in. Like it was saying I had to create an account and pay to sign in to read it. So I apologize, but you can look that up. But I'm going to go. This is going to have to be it for me. Lower left. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't see that. I'll try, if I can pull anything up, I'll put it on my community post later. I want to thank you all for being here this Saturday morning, and I hope you all have a good day, and I will definitely see you all tomorrow. I know today was hard, and I apologize for that. There was a lot of triggering factors going on. I'm sorry I didn't share that where you guys could see it. I'm going to go. I got a lot of cleaning to do today, and I hope you guys have a really good day, and we will be back in the morning going over something. I don't know what yet, but it'll be something. Y'all have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for being here. Please consider hitting the thumbs up on your way out. Have the best day ever. Bye.